not believe
is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God. So we kind of at a stalemate.
we'll focus on the woman who's being the victim,
Right.
or the man who's being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI. Worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond
wanna-
to me. Respond to me
you?
how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services, yeah.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
Money is something we all deal with, but how many of us truly understand it? What if you could make better decisions with your money? Decisions that secure your future, protect your family, and bring you peace of mind. I'm Darren Jacobs, and I'm here to help you make sense of your dollars. Welcome to Dollars and Cents, the show that breaks down the financial world in ways that matter to you. No jargon, no confusion, just real conversations about money, your money. So join me every Wednesday at 10 a.m. on WESN for Dollars and Cents.
As always, we appreciate you starting your day with us. Let's get into this morning's first conversation.
Is the country's healthcare system more at risk more than ever?
Why it has remained unaddressed for so long.
Political parties get lots of cash, big cash from financiers, and then when they get that now, you can't account for it.
But it's really the specialist nurses who we are in a greater shortfall for.
We can tap into the resources and have them, at least form some mentorship programs.
Highlight our food systems, and which will attract persons from all over the world to come and experience something that actually supports the local economy.
We're lucky that we have a vibrant legal system that allows change to take place, and it's not that matters are just swept under the carpet and discrimination is allowed to be perpetrated. A lot of people don't know that there were attempts to ban the carnival, suppress the carnival.
WESN.
Theme of the event, back to your roots. I know a lot of young people today may not. I think we can all agree we grew up playing some type of board game, right?
Yes.
But now board games are not that popular. We've drifted away from board games
to
and
the e-games.
To the e-games, and not only that,
Yes.
I think you'll see more consistency with card games now than board games, and that whole back to your roots thing. I want to know how are you gonna make it appealing to, I guess, a younger generation, because I think the older generation would gladly go back to that, because that was a great fun time for them. But the younger generation now to allow that, even you said from 16 to 100, right?
Yes,
a 16-year-old may not want to go back to board games. They're not too far off from it, and maybe they didn't grow up playing board games. Maybe they they were iPad kids, you know?
Right.
So
Yeah,
how are we doing this? How are we enticing the younger generation to get involved in this culture?
Right, sure. So I would say a few things. One thing, my wife and I, because we are the co-founders of this business, right? What we like to do is go to the very, very beautiful venues in the country. So even before you reach ABC, you'll be hit with the venue, right? So for our first 3 events, we went to the beautiful host venue in McBean in Couva. Shout out to the host family. Beautiful rustic venue, a lot of wooden fixtures, bistro lights, and all those kind of things. So from the ambience alone, there is that wow factor, right? Of course, it can be held anywhere, but for these very big ultra game nights, we want to give folks an experience. So even if you're coming to play a single game, just being in that vicinity and with those ambiance and stuff, that ambiance, you're just like, wow, I really enjoy this. If you're just coming to take selfies, you'll have a good time.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to call my friend, I could call him a friend now, Mr. Jude Patrick from Roots Yard, Scallywag Bay. He actually discovered us on Instagram, and he actually wanted to reach out to us. He's like, bro, I see you. I see what you guys are doing. I want that vibes in the West, because we were trying to think, how can we get in this West? Because for some people, I'm not saying all, but for some people, that lighthouse has like a force field around.
Yeah.
They can't go beyond it, right? So they can't go beyond that. So I see this as divine providence. God saw us, and Mr. Patrick saw us. He said, bring it to the West. So Scallywag Bay, you all must know it. It's Roots Yard, Scallywag Bay. It's a beautiful venue.
Yes. I love it.
Of course. Yeah. And they have all the attractions now, the mini golf. I see they recently brought the skating rink. So the youth want to come just to see all those things. It's right by the ocean, guys. All those yachts and stuff in ice shot. Imagine you playing a game, right? And you are hearing the sea breeze and seeing all these gulls and stuff flying over your head. Come on, all right? So apart from that, right, when you come to every ABC event, after you are blessed with a nice smile and how are you doing, what's your name, bam, bam, bam. It's a ticketed event, right?
Yeah.
So of course, you have your ticket in your hand. That tangible ticket, the value is already there. Folks spend time to produce a beautiful ticket to you, which is a keepsake, as well as a tracker for all the games that you play. All right? And then, of course, once you come, you're going to be given a tangible gourmet gaming menu. So it's almost like a restaurant experience. We are speaking about hosting, and we are trying to cater literally to your social needs, right? So you'll be given a gourmet gaming menu, and on this menu, there are different sections, right? So you have your party platters, right? We are trying to make it seem edible. I want you to taste a board game after you leave, right? So you have your party platters. So those will be your party games with very, very high player counts. Some games are as high as 20 players, etc. And they are not just your normal games from long time. Those will be some new games that you don't even know how to play. But on our above board page on Instagram, I actually do a lot of ABC, a beginner's class, of a lot of those games. So even if you're not sure how to play it, you can just scroll the page, binge watch the content, and you're good to go. However, there are literal hosts, all of which are wearing an above board shirt.
Right.
On the night, who's going to take you through the games, right? So after you have your party platters, you have your local lunches. We are going to have some board games that are made locally, and the game creators are actually going to be there to take you through the game as well. You have your jumbo combos, those very, very big games, things like giant golf darts and stuff that could test your athleticism. You know, folks are very, very competitive, especially for the guys and stuff. So we have like the tabletop games, the very, very, very big games. We have the nostalgic nooks as well. For those who like a little Scrabble from a long time, a little chess, a little drafts, Chinese checkers. And if you would also watch on our page, we love wooden stuff, because I find wood is very, very rustic, and of course it's very, very strong and durable.
Yep.
You know? And this is an ultra game night where every attendee is going to be assigned to a team from the jump. So as soon as you reach the booth, and because it's back to your roots, the 4 teams are named after edible roots, right? So you have Team Dashin, Team Cassava, Team Sweet Potato, and Team Jim.
Yeah.
You understand? So everybody is going to be assigned to a team, and there are prizes for the person who plays the most games. So we really are trying to encourage as many games as possible. For the person who wins the most games, you have multiple door prizes as well. We even have an ABC and above board concert that is going to feature, I'm telling you, that's going to feature a local artist, Mr. Nathaniel Fisherman. If you don't know him, check him out. Yeah. This man is fire and he's blessed, right? And he has the whole, you know, like the whole vibe.
Trust me, I have him on my Spotify. Yeah,
I'm telling you. He is amazing, right? And I could call him a friend as well. So he will be there to bless the crowd. So this is a packed event, guys. It's from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. on June the 14th. 6 hours of unimaginable fun. And even though you all may not see a program printed in your hand, you'll see a menu. The team has been informed about how we're going to do things. So like there's always an unseen structure. We'll have structure because we find most times when you go to a Lime, the host doesn't have a structure. So all of the attendees have to kind of find a place of is either you are being hosted well or you are a hostage to a very uncomfortable situation. We want to make young and old comfortable.
Yeah. So I see there's a three ticket tier kind of.
A 3-tier, yes.
Yeah. So what is that? Explain that, and then give us the costing as well.
Sure. So because we are going to a venue that has its own attractions, right? We want folks to have the choice to either be fully ABC, fully Scallywag Bay, Rootyard, or both, right? So we have a 3-tier ticket system, and we have a traffic light system, right? It's a ABC original. So the first tier is the all access ticket, right? And every attendee will wear a green band on their hand, right? And green means go. So they have access to the above board championship, which is the ABC tournament. They have access to the above board concerts, and they also have food and drink, as well as access to the Hocha fun bikes. So at Scallywag Bay, there are these rickshaw bikes where you can kind of ride around a track around Scallywag Bay, right? And they also have access to the 18-hole mini golf, which takes about half an hour to run, but it's extremely fun. So they have access to the facilities at Rootyard as well as ABC. So that is the green all access. The cost of that ticket is $350, but up to Friday, the 23rd coming, midnight, it is going at $300. So all now, that ticket, the all access, is $300. So that's a $50 discount. So the second tier is the Amber Light, right? So this is the general ticket. So this will be what the attendees or patrons are used to from our other events, where they have full access to our ABC championship and concert and food, but they will not have access to the facilities at Scallywag, be it the mini golf as well as the bikes. All right. And the last tier is what we call the who you're rooting for spectator ticket, right? Pun intended, right? Who you're rooting for spectator ticket. So this is a fixed price of $150. One thing I forgot to say, the general tier, the full price is $300, but up to Friday 23rd midnight is going for $250. All right, so also a $50 discount, right? So the who you're rooting for spectator tickets, that is that gives the person access to the Scallywag facilities, be it the mini golf and the rickshaw bikes, but they will only be able to spectate the ABC vibes. You know, some folks will be like, you know, they're not really into board games, but I still want to come and see what it is about. So the next time I'll go the full way, right?
Yeah.
So they can come and enjoy. They can even enjoy the above board concert, because all attendees on that night, even if they are not participating with ABC per se, you are still going to be there for the concert, right? So it means that on that night, the cheapest ticket of entry will be the spectator price of $150, right? So you have your $300 early bird for the green, which is the all access. You have your $250 early bird for the general, and that's yellow, and you have your red, who you're rooting for spectator price of $150, and that's fixed before and after the early bird special.
Nice. Yeah, I think so. I just wanted to reiterate that. I know you said it, but for the red one, the clear routing for pass, that you have access to all the amenities
All
at Scallywag
this stuff at
except
Scallywag.
participating in the ABC.
ABC, but they can spectate but not participate.
Gotcha.
However, I must say that if, for example, folks are on the night and they want to upgrade their ticket, that facility is also available, right?
Okay.
So if they start off as a general and they want to go to all access, they could just pay the difference of 50 at the booth and we'll upgrade their band, because don't forget ABC assigned band colors, right? So you have your green and your red, and I must also say that those are the same shades of the Rastafarian flag, you know. So I had to kind of meet my bro at Scallywag midway, you know, and I'm sure he hasn't noticed that until I say it now. But I see these things, I see that all these things are connected in some way. So once you could upgrade from a spectator to the access to the above board championship, etc., by paying an extra 100 on the night, you know. And the thing about the spectator, the food and drink is not included in that. They will have to go to the restaurant, which is on site, and they can buy the food at their own pleasure.
Okay. So where can we where do we get the tickets? Are they
Right,
online?
so the above board, the above board number is 744-2028, and that is Mrs. Vice, my wife. All the tickets are already printed and stuff. So once folks confirm to us where they are, we can either arrange to meet them within 2 to 3 days of them purchasing the ticket. You get it in your hand. Or if you prefer, if you're living real far, you can always have it at the door. Your name and stuff will be reserved on your ticket. You're inside. And we have a spreadsheet with all of those who have paid already and stuff, so we know exactly who is coming, etc. So it's either we meet you up and we give it to you in your hand, and everyone will have their own envelope with the above board seal. Like we pay a lot of detail in intentionality, you know, so folks really feel that they were thought of and prepared for now. This is not just you're going to come for a line. This is not a line. This is an event. I wouldn't say a once-in-a-lifetime event, because we want you all to come several times, right? But it is a very, very different. I'm trying to do something a bit differently. You feel like, wow, boy, I've come to a show, I've come to a restaurant, I've come to something bigger than me.
Yes, and just have the time of your life.
All right, so just to
That is right, that's right.
The contact number is 744-2028.
744-2028. I'll say that again, 744-2028.
And if you want to just check out the web, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, or they could message us on Instagram and we could organize from there as well.
All right. So the website is aboveboardcompany.org. If you want to go check out other stuff that they do, the kind of games that you guys have, you can go to their website. Again, that's aboveboard, www.aboveboard.org.
That's right, that's right. And we do a lot more things than just these big game events, right? We host for home line, so we call that ABC, above board celebrations. We've done several team builders thus far. We call that ABC, above board corporate, above board corporate.
Okay.
If somebody wants to get married, ABC,
above board
a bride's
ceremony.
choice.
Oh, I was going to say ceremony.
Exactly. I love that. Well done. I should hire you. But we call that a bride's choice, because the bride could choose to entertain her crowd anyway, but she chose us. You know? And it's really a different experience. We've had a successful one in January of this year. It was amazing. You could also see the details of that one on our page as well, a bride's choice. So we do a lot of things, guys. If you have a baby shower, ABC, a baby's coming.
I love that. I love that.
It just keeps coming. It just keeps
going down.
Dr. Goka, thank you so much for joining us today and telling us so much about the Above Board Company. I enjoyed learning about the company.
Yes.
I love that we're doing something like this in Trinidad. I have to say, I love it. I love it. I love it. Thanks so much for taking up this initiative.
And thanks so much for having me, guys. I had so much fun.
Of course.
And I hope to see you all there too, eh?
You probably will. You probably will.
Nice, man. Nice.
I'll bring my whole team, because we love games. And my friends and I, we are like, and I'm telling you, we get down. I say a games night. I cannot miss a games night. Love games.
Friends out. So I'm going to see you there.
Yeah.
I'll spectate.
And you as well. Nice one. It was lovely.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks again for coming on the program.
Same to you guys. Let's go.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.
So we're just going to take a short break
Yeah.
and we'll be right back with you. We're keeping on trend with embracing local culture and promoting local businesses. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
I try my best, guys. It was fun.
Her voice has mesmerized us for years.
And now, in a rare treat for music fans,
Shakuntala and Friends in concert, featuring Shakuntala Jangbahadur. Singing sensation Nepal Chaikwal, brilliant musician Dr. Shivanan Maharaj, master flautist and saxophonist Narendra Maharaj, with music from Shiv Sangeet Orchestra, Shakuntala and Friends in concert.
Shakuntala.
Low energy? Heart concerns? Migraines slowing you down? It's time to take control of your health. Join Wellness Unlocked, the series that brings expert advice and real solutions for a healthier you. In our latest episode, learn how Jameson CoQ10 can help support heart health, boost energy, and even reduce migraines. Get the science, the stories, and the steps to power up your health with CoQ10. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and start your wellness journey today.
Hi, I'm Claudette, radiographer at the radiology departments at the community hospital. We offer high-quality service with state-of-the-art equipment in X-ray, ultrasound, CT, and mammogram. Come, our friendly staff awaits you.
Welcome back to the program this morning. So as Jada said, we are staying on trend with, local,
highlighting local business efforts.
Yes.
So now we'll be jumping into the world of publishing. So with the owner and founder of One Momentum Publishing, Mr. Daniel Francis. He is an author himself of 3 books, The Millennial Mind and The Millennial Experience, and newly added How to Write and Self-Publish Your Book as an Aspiring Caribbean Author. So he would have opened up himself and lent his talents to now other Caribbean authors and those wanting to take that step from writing and into writing and getting their own book published. But Daniel gives it to you a little bit differently. He focuses on the skill of self-publishing and hybrid publishing. So today we're talking a bit more about that versus traditional publishing. So good morning and welcome to the program, Mr. Francis.
Good morning, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very excited.
Yes, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Yes.
So tell us, I know it's pretty early, but you are an early riser.
Yeah, I live in deep Santa Cruz. You have no choice. You have to wake up like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. because the traffic starts
One
about
way
6.
in, one way out.
Yeah, two ways, but
yeah.
I mean, one way kind of longer than the other. So yeah, I'm accustomed.
I don't know how Trinidadians do that. Yeah, like the Marvel and the St. John's is one way in, one way. I will lose my mama.
Listen, when you start young, you just get accustomed to it.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to be an early riser now because it helps me out in all the ways. Yeah.
So tell us, what is self-publishing?
So self-publishing is essentially when, let's say you've written a book, it's called a manuscript. You decide, you know what, I want to put this book out to the world and I want to do all the work. So the steps within putting the book out there is editing, you format the book, You get an international standard book number. It's basically like the fingerprint for your book. You get the book cover, and then you publish it, whether it's on Amazon, these different profiles, and then you have like a book launch so that people can know about it. When you self-publish, you decide, I'm going to organize all this. I'm going to find my editor. I'm going to be like a project manager and manage the steps in between. That's self-publishing. Most people are accustomed to traditional publishing, where you basically just pitch your book to different companies.
So, okay, so as a person who wants to self-publish, what even makes you think I want to do that? I want to take in that work for myself
Why is it
giving it away?
better than the traditional?
Well, one, it's easier to self-publish now than it's ever been.
Okay.
There's so much information out there just teaching you how to do it yourself. The second thing is it's pretty difficult to get in the traditional publishing route because I've known persons who would have sent their manuscript to hundreds of publishers and they wouldn't get through. You know, so sometimes that deters people. But also, even if you get through, sometimes the proposal that they set forward isn't to your liking because they can, basically when you go through that route, they more or less have the rights for your book. So they can decide when they publish it, how they publish it. There's a royalties agreement. So when books are sold, you get a certain amount. But on the other side, they're now taking on all the cost of editing, book cover design, marketing the book, and these traditional publishing houses tend to be more established. So they have all the different routes for marketing and they know what works and what may not work. But you just don't have as much control over your work as you might like. So for me, when I self-publish, and for authors I've seen who self-publish, they just want to have a bit more control over their book.
So what, I know you have OM Momentum Publishing.
Yeah, One Momentum Publishing.
Right. So what did you see, like, in terms of doing that and then self-publishing? I know, well, I'm assuming you would have wanted to bridge some type of gap, right? Sure. Let's talk about that. What is the gap that you wanted to bridge?
Honestly, the gap is just, I don't want any perspective on new author to go through what I went through with my first book.
Okay.
Because when I had the idea for my first book, I wrote it, but I had no idea what to do next. You know, I'm figuring it out as I go. So throughout that experience, I found that the information on it was very hard to come by. A lot of it was just UK-based, American-based, but I'm asking myself, where's the Caribbean-based information? Something as simple as, okay, I've published my book on Amazon. How do I get paid? How do I get paid? I'm seeing the option that they send you a check, but there must be an alternative way because I want to get the money in my account. So I'm going through this process and I'm realizing, wow, there's a lot of niche information that you need to know. And it's not just generally out there. So from that first book, so said so done, a lot of authors or new authors came to me and said, hey, I saw your first book, The Millennial Mind. How did you do this? How did you do that? How do you do this? And it was so overwhelming that I started doing free webinars just to educate people because, again, I went through something that was really difficult. And I don't want anybody else to go through it in the same way. And that just evolved into, okay, there's a need here. Persons want to know this information that's niche to us. And from that, the company was born. Because at the same time, you meet people where they're at. Some people just want the information and they self-publish themselves. Some people want the information, but they want you to do everything for them. And I guess, you know, I built up a certain level of trust with persons because, again, you're doing webinars for about 2 years, just educating people. And they started to say, okay, you know, I believe that this guy can help me get from point A to point B being published.
So even on that, is it different working with an author who has come to you as soon as they've written their book, or an author who has gone to all of the traditional publishing houses and they've been turned down many other times? That would make a person feel less confident, and then they come to you afterwards. So is there a difference between the types of authors that you work with?
Yeah, I mean, the authors come in all forms, ages. Like I have published for as young as, I don't even know, maybe like 7, 6.
Wow.
Yeah, they're doing kids' books. Because again, once you have the idea and the parents sees it, they're like, they can run with it. You know, and as old as maybe like 80, you know, there's never really an age to not publish. I think what I see more often than not is, again, for those who would have tried the traditional publishing route and they didn't get through the way they wanted to, they just want to put their work out there. There's a part of them that just wants it there because, again, when you put that work into writing a book, it's a lot of work, and you really just, it's like it becomes your baby, and you just want to see your baby do its best, right? Yeah, to flourish. So they basically just want to get that out there. But then on the other end, there are those who have trusted in different outlets that just fail them. You know, I've had persons who went to publishers disappear with their money, didn't do any work, and they come in jaded. So they come in with a million questions for me, and I understand because you've been wronged.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, you still want to get to that final result.
Yeah, so you work with all these different people. So what makes somebody the best type of candidate for One Memento Publishing?
I mean, again, I try to meet people where they're at because there are those who will come, Daniel, I've written my book, I don't know what to do next. Cool, I can give you the steps. Because my main thing is, it's not even so much about working with me necessarily, it's more about getting the information and making the best decision for you.
Okay.
Because if I'm not the best decision for you, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Right? So I've had those who've come, they've written their book, they say, hey, I don't know what to do next, but I'm willing to put in the work. Then I'll say, all right, cool, this is the information. Go do your thing. While you're doing your thing, if you have any problems, just ask me. I've had persons come and said, hey, I wrote this book, I don't want to do any work. And I say, oh, great, you know, we have all these services, we'll organize it, and I already know how to talk to you to keep you updated so you feel safe, secure, and things are going, you know, on track.
Yeah. What do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have about getting published?
Biggest misconceptions? Oh gosh. People say that a book is a passive form of income. Now, I hear that, but I think there's a misconception that a book is still a product, like any other product. So if you don't market this product, if you don't tell people about this product, it's not going to sell, right? You know, the statistics are that most first-time authors might sell between 200 to 250 copies of their book in the first year. And that's honestly because they're approaching it as though I'm a creative. I put this work out into the world and it will just do well. But that's not how it works, you know? One of the biggest mistakes you can make as a new author is that you put that book out there and you don't do a book launch. That book launch is that opportunity for the world to be like, hey everybody, this is my book. I'm introducing it to you. You share that moment with your friends, your families, anybody that's interested, and they share it out to the world.
Yeah, and I think that's your time to sell the book.
Yeah,
like, that's at the book launch, you sell.
You have that new excitement.
Yeah, listen, a little hack for new authors. When you have that book launch, you basically are setting up pre-orders, you know.
Yeah.
So you already know, okay, on this day, I have persons who are attending, and about 50 of them already coming to purchase a book. You could collect that cash beforehand and use that in preparation for the event itself. There's so many different ways to do things. But again, I find a lot of authors are just on the creative end. They may not be necessarily on the business side of things.
Yeah.
So they get lost in, wow, this is a lot more work than I thought, and I'm not reaping the rewards I expected. But you really have to find a balance because you need to look at it as a product because that's what it is.
So you said you have all these services. So for a person who just wants to set it and forget it, would you help them with that as well?
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, once the book is published onto Amazon, I basically give them guidance on, okay, where are you at right now and how do you want this to play out? And that's kind of how I guide them. So for example, if they say, you know, this is just a passion project, I put it on and they say I want to get like 10 copies, I guide them on the best way to get those 10 copies. There are some who are very aggressive and they say, listen, this book is part of my business. It's a product in my business ecosystem. Once it's out, I want to go hard. I say, great, tell me your budget, tell me your goals, and then I help them plan the book launch. I tell them, hey, if you have multiple books, this is a good schedule to get them out there because everybody's different. So you have to, again, you have to meet them where they are and then give them the best plan based on where they are going.
You have to learn a lot of people's skills to do that.
Well, the way my life is set up, it kind of worked out because you know, I started as a leadership development coach. You throw in events, you're talking to people all the time. And, you know, it's weird, I don't really see myself as a creative in this pure sense because I write self-help books. So I'm speaking to my experience and trying to use relatable facts and then practical advice to help persons, again, get to point A to point B. So my approach to all of this is more, this is my usual. I'm helping somebody, but I'm helping them in a different way. Or I'm adding this to my business ecosystem, but it's just a different way.
But you are creative using a creative outlet.
Yeah.
I think you have to be creative to write a book.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
You see, it's different because there are different types of books. You have non-fiction, which is what I mainly do, which is the self-help, and you might do memoirs and these kind of things. When you go into the fiction realm, listen, and fairies and
so you can write a fiction book.
I have not been able to get into that just yet.
Would you?
Of course, I think for me it's more about like experience.
Yeah.
I honestly can say I have not read enough fiction books and novels.
Yes.
But I know once I start getting into it, how the brain works, you just start to connect things that you would have never connected. Because when I wrote my first book, I didn't have any plans for any other books. But as soon as I was done with that book, the ideas just started flowing because the unknown was the issue. But once you've gone past the unknown and you see what's there, you start to kind of connect the dots and, you know, I did this, I could do this next time. And, you know, this idea could flow like that. And it just...
Yeah, and I think the process becomes easier having done it once already. Your mind just knows
because you have the confidence,
how to flow,
Yeah.
But I want to ask about ebooks, right? So publishing online versus publishing hard
Physical.
copy,
Everybody is also different in the way that they want to intake information. So I always tell persons, meet them in all the different ways. I say that knowing that I haven't even put out the audiobooks or any of my books yet. But, you know, Amazon has, on all these platforms like Amazon, they're great in that you can put a paperback. You can do hardcover, you can do ebook, you can do audiobook. So that when somebody is looking to get your book, they can get it in all the different formats that fit them. Even just doing ebook was a lot of research on my end initially because you don't think about it until it's time to do it. So I put on the paperback and I say, hey, there's an ebook option. I have no idea what this is. You know, I don't know how to do this, but it's all about learning process. And one of the ways that I've helped to kind of share information is that I started a group. It's on WhatsApp and Facebook where I just have authors in there, prospective authors, and it solved the problem of information scarcity. So now when somebody comes in there, they can ask their questions, I can answer it. But also there's a host of other authors who've also gone through the same thing and become a community. It's so nice. They just share information, they help each other, you know, they bounce off creative ideas. And again, it's all just to fight what I was going through in the past where I just didn't know what to do, didn't have a community, that kind of thing.
Is that the Authors Village?
Yeah, that's the Caribbean Author Village. So that would have been birthed when I did the first author conference last year, you know, because I didn't just want to do an event and educate persons and then create a space for them to sell their books. I wanted to have something sustainable where it is, okay, we are still a group that can help each other, you know, so they share opportunities in there, we share resources. Every time there's a new update on, let's say, Amazon or anything booksellery, they put it in there. And I'm so grateful for those in our group.
Yeah. There's a, I don't know if either of y'all would remember this or know this, but I remember growing up, there was something called Wattpad. And, and Wattpad was a website that allowed, it was for authors or young authors, right? So it would be a lot of, at the time, I think most of the authors on Wattpad would be teenagers. And we would write, it's a community that would write these books about these fantasy love stories, just different types of books. But it was so popular, and this, I don't know why this has me thinking about it, because on Wattpad you can write your book. Anybody can become an author on Wattpad. Once you join, you can read books, write books.
I
remember I wrote books on Wattpad as well. And then you, in the community, people can follow you. It was kind of like a very social,
like a
Facebook because you can chat with people. You can, when you write your book, you publish it on Wattpad, but it's only on Wattpad. It's a Wattpad exclusive. You can't find the book anywhere else. And people in the community read your book, they can like your book, they can share your book within the community, comment on your book. And then, and to me, that, like I'm remembering that as it's a form of publishing, right? But it's specific to that community. I don't know what are your thoughts on something like that?
Pages and apps just like that.
Yeah.
Persons, but mostly persons will use it to kind of test out.
Right, because there's no income that you can get from that.
Yeah, but the feedback alone is a lot, because you can get that feedback, make changes, and then produce a really, really great book that you know for sure, hey, I've tested this.
Yeah.
Persons have read it. They've given me feedback. I've made changes and they like it.
Yeah.
You know, and that confidence alone is a lot. Because one thing they don't tell you about the writing process, when you're writing, whew, the fear of criticism or who am I to write this, it can be crippling. And it stops a lot of persons from finishing their book or even just putting it out there.
Yeah. I think one thing what did allow is you can update chapter by chapter.
Yes.
So there was this book I really liked. It was about dragons. Guys, I was like 14. Give me peace. But it was about dragons, and every other week or so the author would update and she'd be like, oh, sorry guys, I just came home from school, but this is what I wrote. And
yes. It would literally have things like that. And the certain books, like you would read, it would be like mini books. So you will get like 8 chapters, and then the author would say, you know, the next 8 chapters are coming in a month or 2 months. So then you'll, you know, put a notification bell or something and to be notified when the rest of the book comes out. So, yeah, it was a very fun. That time was. I don't know if Wattpad is still around. It is, but it's definitely this generation is not gonna.
It's ad-ridden right now. Yeah, but can you see Authors Village becoming something like that?
For me, I guess my vision for the Author Village is just whatever they need, whatever the need is, I just help facilitate it.
Yeah.
You know, it started with the conference. So part of the conference would have been, hey guys, I'm giving you a free space to sell your book. Because one of the major issues for authors is they don't know how to promote their book, or they're not promoting it well enough, and they don't often get an avenue to sell their book. So I try to do those events. Now I'm going to keep them in the author villages and the conferences. But anything they need, I really just try to facilitate it. You know, we have resources in there where we talk about how you get into bookstores, a listing of different bookstores, how you reach out to them. Different resources. Like that same site, we have just a bunch of different sites.
Nice.
You know, even though I am a publisher, we still have a resource where it says, okay, if you want to go through and do different things, editor information, book cover artist information, so that you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
Because it's supposed to be an ecosystem. I'm not supposed to be policing that ecosystem.
Daniel, what if somebody comes to you and their book is not that well written? What do you do?
That is what an editor is for. That is what an editor is for. Listen,
so all books can be saved?
All books can be saved, of course, of course. When you first send your manuscript, let's say you're a first-time author, the first type of editing we do is called developmental. It's like a teacher going through your work, and they look for structural changes, and it's usually a very detailed report that you get that tells you, hey, you need to change this on page 97. You need to give more details here. This didn't make sense. Maybe try this. And then you try again. And then when you bring it back, then you get into regular editing.
Do you provide that service?
Yeah, all of that is within the editing. You know? So each book is a bit different. Some people need it, some people don't.
Yeah. So what about an author who already has a book, right? Let's say, you know, the book didn't sell very well. Can they still come to you hoping to revamp the book and maybe relaunch it? And
we get those all the time. You know, at the end of the day, marketing.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't know the proper approaches, so we have book marketing services, whether we just give you a consult, whether we give you a very detailed plan of what you can do for yourself, whether we're doing the content, planning the book launch, giving you, advice on when you should launch, why you should launch on this day, how you should launch. You know, we just try to meet persons where they're at. You know, but and the thing is too, it's also about changing their mindset, because you can come to me and not know what's the best avenue for you. You might say, I just want to do one book. The strategy for if you're doing one book versus multiple different books is very different. The strategy.
Her voice has mesmerized us for years.
And now, in a rare treat for music fans,
Shakuntala and Friends in concert, featuring Shakuntala Jang Bahadur. Singing sensation Deval Chaitlal, brilliant musician Dr. Shivanan Maharaj, master flautist and saxophonist Narendra Maharaj, with music from Shiv Sangeet Orchestra, Shakuntala and Friends in concert.
Shakuntala.
Struggling with heart health or frequent migraines? Discover the simple steps to reclaim your energy and vitality.
We're diving into a topic that affects about 422 million people around the world. diabetes.
Tune into Wellness Unlocked, the series that delivers expert advice, practical tips, and inspiring stories to help you take control of your health and well-being. Your health matters. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and take the first step toward better health.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios. But they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private health care affordable.
For all your medical needs, including dental, radiology, laparoscopy, behavioral and mental health, along with many other services, contact us for more information at 235-5479.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Our award-winning show is back, and this season promises to be even more exciting than before. What's Up, Doc isn't just a title, it's a call to action for anyone who wants to improve their health and well-being. Join us on this thrilling ride towards better health on WESN Content Capital.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Welcome back to AM Prime on WESN. So we're jumping into a conversation this morning.
Yes, it is about something the Digicel Foundation is doing. They are continuing with their Tech in Ed initiative. So last week we spoke a little bit about what they were doing, the work they were doing with the Alta community in Belmont by providing technology hubs to help to help facilitate education for students in the community. Well, the work continues, but this time they are calling on steel bands registered with Pan Trinbago to put in applications for these technology centers, or what they call the technology in education centers. So to tell us more about the offering is Miss Diana Mathura-Hobson, the project officer of the Digicel Foundation. As well with us this morning, we have Miss Beverly Ramsey Moore, president of Pan Trinbago. Good morning and welcome to the program. So I'm thinking we have a little bit of a audio disruption there.
Miss Ramsey Moore, can you hear us? Or Miss?
Yes, I'm hearing you clearly.
Okay, so we're on. We're saying good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning.
Welcome to the program. All right, so I did give a little bit of an intro there, recapping what the work y'all would have done, what Digicel would have done with Alta and Epic.
And Epic, yes.
And then you are continuing with this technology in education initiative. So you've partnered with Pan Trinbago, so you're looking for steel bands registered with Pan Trinbago to put in applications to receive the Technology in Education Center. So tell us a little bit more about where did this idea for a technology in education centers originate? Where did that come from, Diana?
Oh, well, thank you so much for having us this morning. And well, in 2022, post COVID-19, of course, we could have seen the effects, and while the rest of the world was moving towards digital transformation, we realized at the Digicel Foundation that at-risk communities, youths in at-risk communities, as well as underserved communities, were still being left behind due to no access to technology, to technology devices. So our our technology and education centers program was developed at that point, where we decided to go into community centers and set up smart spaces to be able to grant these persons access to technology so that they could continue learning, they could continue developing themselves. In that year, in 2022, one of the 5 groups that benefited from that program just happened to be the Tobago Panthers Steel Orchestra in Tobago. And because of the success of that group, we decided, let's develop on the Panyard model. And we did not regret it in that year, and even in the year after that year too. We have and continue to see the success of the use of the Panyard model, and providing and integrating technology in the steel panyards, which continues to foster community engagement and gives them an opportunity to preserve culture and give them an opportunity to enhance their after-school programs. To date, we've invested over $733,000 TT dollars, and we've developed 19 steel pan yards with these centers.
Yes. Miss Beverly, actually want to know from your perspective and, the perspective of Pan Trinbago, why is this partnership so crucial to the steel pan community? Why is it significant?
Of course, the steel pan community empowers a number of young people. In particular, you find the youth coming to the panyards after school, and we say that pan is a therapeutic instrument. It keeps them calm, it teaches them discipline. And so when Digicel approached us to have this education center, technological center, we definitely grasped at it, and we were so proud that we would have been able to launch that program at a specific time when we celebrated World Steel Pan Day for the very first time here in Trinidad and Tobago. And so the program continues in a number of panyards. Imagine coming home from school, getting to your panyard, doing your practice learning, training on the instrument, and then you spend some hours behind the computer being taught by a professional. I think that is amazing. As we continue to move rapidly in the technological world, it is extremely good for our young people, and we really, really think it is an amazing project, and we will continue working with Digicel to ensure that as much of our panyards as possible have that type of resource to continue to train and empower the young people.
So what exactly makes a good candidate for this type of grants? Can you go into the specifics of what they need to have, Diana?
Sure, of course. Well, of course, they must be registered with Pan Trinbago to become a partner with us, right?
Yes.
And they must have a vibrant youth program, an existing homework center, after-school program that continues, and we know they do, because they continuously engage the young people. They, from our experience, they come there in droves. This is the space that keeps our young people off the street. So, of course, these are the bands we're looking for. Any band that's engaged in steel pan music, and of course registered with Pan Trinbago and has this vibrant program, ongoing programs.
So what does this initiative mean for you personally? Because what you're actually doing work where you see on the ground development, on the ground improvement. So what has it been like over the years doing this type of work for you?
Over the years, I've seen so many spaces transform, and it's beyond the technology. It's just seeing the growth and development of our young people, keeping them safe, keeping them informed, giving them the access that they probably would not have had before. We've had success stories coming out of many of our bands. The Tobago Panthers is just one example. The Pandominium Band, so many of them boast of their success, of the growth and development they've seen coming out of their children, coming in one way, and they're moving in not just in that space, but also they're able to foster what they've learned, taking it from that space into their school spaces, and even encouraging their other peers to get involved.
So give us the nuts and bolts. Tell us what exactly will these selected steel bands receive as part of the grants?
So we upgrade their spaces. So once there's room or need to upgrade those spaces, because we don't want to just give you computers and devices, but we want you to be able to come into a safe, healthy, clean, upgraded, comfortable, air-conditioned environment. Chairs, tables, desks, internet connectivity, 1 year free broadband data from complements our Digicel Plus partners, and the list goes on. Whatever that space needs, when we do that needs assessment, we be sure to add it to our list.
So for Ms. Beverly Ann, can you tell me what kind of digital skills or activities was most interesting to you? What was like the standout effect of the initiative for your life?
Right, so for us, we believe that it is easier to learn in the Panyard than in a classroom. Yes, when you come to the Panyard, when you think of a child or the young people, coming to the Panyard, learning so many songs, we call them tunes, and you think that they retain that. They play by ear, and they retain over 30 tunes on the stage side. And so we say that if these young people can do so well in the Panyard by retaining all that music, then it is easier for them to learn in a Panyard than in a classroom. And so by fusing culture and technology, it assists them in even doing better in school. And so because of that, Digicel do their part, and as a steel band, we do our part in that we engage the professional, they come in, we also pay the tutor to teach, and we provide opportunities for other young people to monitor and assist. So it is just about holding hands and doing this program to ensure that our young people, spend their time meaningfully, and of course, gain the knowledge and the access to the world through the computer. So for us, that is very exciting. I look at the young people in our Panyard, Digicel upgraded the space. A number of Panyards, they upgraded the space. They would have put the computers in, and these young people, after they've either before practice or after practice, they then get their training, and it is amazing to see how they're so excited to get
they
this.
would be.
It is really, really an excitement just to see for yourself. That too. In itself is, as leaders in the steel band community, we are really, really thankful and grateful.
So I also see that this could be an add-on, a Nintendo Switch, as part of the package. Because I could imagine if I was a panist and I walked into one of these centers and I know I play my pan, and then I just come over and I see a Nintendo Switch, I would never want to leave.
Correct.
Yes. So with that, what is the educational or social benefit of including these gaming consoles into the initiative?
So it may seem like a nice to have, and many people see it as a negative. Why are we encouraging these children to come here and just play? But we decided that we want them to have a social experience as well. Yes, we want to give them the educational exposure and the exposure to technology, but we wanted it to be a space where they could also feel comfortable to play together, learn together, encourage, and just enjoy being in each other's company. So, and of course, we know that will attract them and keep them coming. So that's the whole point, to keep them coming. And we thought it would have been not just a nice to have, but a way to keep them engaged and help them to know you could come and not just learn, but you could come and play together.
Have fun, It's a nice incentive, because I think too, for a young person, you're coming to something that's like a class, and for some it would be something they enjoy, but it's also nice to have that extra push, that extra, you know.
Yeah. I play on a Nintendo Switch, and then you go and tell all your friends, now everybody wants to be a panist.
So that's really nice. So, Ms. Diana, you would have, the Digicel Foundation would have also mentioned minor infrastructure upgrades. You know, can you touch on that and exactly, you know, typically what would be covered as part of these upgrades?
So sometimes we meet these spaces, the floors are not tiled, so we would probably tile the floors. It's not an air-conditioned space. We install air conditions, we'll give it a repainting. There may be just a corner and we create a room so that it's enclosed and safe so that they can operate and also keep the equipment separate from the steel pans because you want to create a sort of a classroom environment. So these are the types of upgrades. It's very minor, but it's based as well as of the needs of the band. And when we encounter these bands, what is the real need? How can we create this space for them? So it could be even creating a room for them because they probably just have a section where they do their classrooms, but it's not enclosed. So.
Yeah.
Have you seen, and this question would be for Miss Beverly Moore, have you seen the divide sort of lessen? So before, when students, they didn't have access to these to this technology, to now when they have access, have you seen a real-time impact of this divide lessening?
Of course. You know, some of these communities that are benefiting from these centers, basically they are grassroots communities, all right, where we have a number of children who may not have access to a computer or so. And by providing that the social interactions, people of all ages coming together, bonding together, playing together, socializing together, I mean, that does a lot. Even for us as steel band leaders, I mean, the parents, when the children come, the parents come, and you know, as we say, pan is intergenerational. So when they come to the pan yard, it's not just and the children or the young people alone come in, but the relatives will come. And even now we see where, as we try to bridge that gap on that social divide, we also see where some of the parents, you know, they're also asking if we can allow them, you know, sometimes during the day when the children are not there, if they can also come in and use and have access to computers. And we do allow them to come in, those who would want to get that, to come in and also use the centers, because I mean, it's an after-school program, but the computers are there. And so it's not just the children that can benefit from these centers, but also their parents can also benefit. And so, I mean, when you look at the leaders coming even for the handover of these computers, and when that you have that function where they are handed over, and the pride and joy, and to hear them when they receive from Digicel, that alone says a lot. And you know, we really look forward to these additional centers, because I don't think that Digicel intended to have all these centers. Probably it was just the 5 centers and full stop. But we see where it is an ongoing program, and I mean, it is definitely creating an impact here in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes. What is the structure of these centers? Like, is there a principal or senior person that would ensure things run smoothly throughout the course of the day?
Of course. So every center will probably operate differently, but we know that the structure of a steel band is where you have a manager, you have your captain, and you have your secretary, so there is a structure, and most likely in that structure, the manager, or they are going to have a youth leader, the person who is responsible for the youth programs in the Panyard may definitely take charge. But I know, for example, if I'm to use my Panyard, for example, we would have engaged one of our team leaders to direct the program, and our secretary is always there, and they will manage these young people, ensure that everything goes well there in the Panyard, and then of course we pay a fee we pay a fee at the end of every month to ensure that we have a professional on board to do that kind of training. Okay. So it opens up opportunities for other persons to benefit.
Yes. I think Ms. Diana can answer this. You know, beyond the technological side of it, what types of activities or training would be offered at these centers?
So we have a digital partner, RSC, and they also provide training in AI technology robotics. So this year, we actually launching our SIT campaign, and you'll hear more about that later on during the year when we do the actual launch. But we plan to go into these pan spaces and expose our children to AI technology, robotics, you name it. In terms of technology, it's the focus. And of course, we also want to see other types of training coming out of our panyards, not just in technology, not just in education, but even life skills coming out of these centers, because it's important to us as a foundation to see, and even social skills, which they may not always have access or be able to be exposed to.
Yes.
So
can you expand on it a bit more, you know, in the sense that, so I understand it's not just, you know, learning to play the steel pan or, but we'll also see some, you know, work done in entrepreneurship and creativity, digital expression. Can you expand or go into a bit of detail as to how these things will be rolled out?
So the after school programs, we when we invest and we place these spaces, we create these spaces, we just build upon what's existing in the panyards. And I think that President Moore would be able to expand on this better, because he's aware of what they teach at the panyards, the after school programs, the various activities that they have going on. So technology is just one aspect of it, and because this is what we do, we are a digital lifestyle partner. Yes. So whatever is already there, we just built upon it using technology.
Okay. Yeah.
Of course. Yes, and I mean, we have other partners besides Digicel that assist in the training and development of our young people. In particular, during the August holidays, several panyards have pan camps, where they have a number of persons coming in to train those young people in the various skills, and as she would have mentioned, life skills and all of that. So the various panyards have a number of programs happening, and in particular during the vacation period. We work also closely, and I mean, we're talking Digicel here, but I mean, I'm just to mention, one of the other partners that work closely with us is IDB. And so they also assist in providing that kind of business element to our young people. A number of things are happening where we set up these programs in various panyards, whether it's in Massey All Stars, whether it's in this other band, just slipping my brain in now, in Redemption Songsetter Spaniard, and persons can come in, get the training wherever, especially if we set up these talk shops, and we have this diary of all the persons involved in PAN that has a business that can come and set up and have a number of persons benefiting. So yes, every panyard is unique, and every panyard have a training to suit the people in their space. And it continues, yes.
Yeah. So $733,000 is what's being invested. So how does the foundation measure like the ROI for that? How do you track whether or not this is really working? We're going to keep investing 19 more, 5 more.
The success speaks for itself, and we measure success not by the number of devices we put, not by the number of centers that we've developed, but once the bands are making use of these spaces, once we know that it's not something, President Moore spoke about PAN being intergenerational. So it's about creating a future, a space for growth and continuity. And we know that our success is measured when we see continuity. The spaces are being utilized, not just for technology, not just for educational purposes, but we're seeing growth and development in our young people, and that gives us the zeal to continue programs like these, to continue. Because as I mentioned before, we are a digital lifestyle partner, and we want to see Trinidad and Tobago become a more digital society and experience true digital transformation, especially in underserved communities where there is lack of access, which still exists, by the way.
Yes. So sometimes underserved communities have a certain perception about them. So what the Digicel Foundation is doing is kind of helping to change that narrative, shift the narrative around sometimes what is a very poor perception. I imagine that the students become a lot more proud about the areas that they are in, as well as the parents. So can you go into a little bit more of what because you mentioned intergenerational impact there. Can you go into a little bit more about how the parents have responded to the initiative? It could go from either one of you.
The parents are extremely happy because one day the children are getting assistance to do the homework. Yeah. When they come from school, they're there, we have the trainers, and they are, of course, instead of going home, playing, probably forgetting to do the homework, then you do it is a sure thing that homework will be done. So the parents are also getting that kind of assistance in getting the homework. So it also serves as a homework center.
Yes,
right?
That is beautiful. Yeah.
So you play the instrument. When you come in, you do at 20 minutes. It calms you and it prepares you. That's what the therapy is about.
Yeah.
And then you do your homework. And after homework, then you have been trained how to get on board with the computer and all of that. So yes, the parents are extremely happy to come in, and they sit and they look. And I mean, I'm sure it is a rewarding feeling that here is my child in a safe and sacred space.
Doing something productive.
Yeah, it's
That's
honestly,
right. It is going to be a benefit to them.
Yeah, it's a third space as well. You know, it's a place where the community can gather. But even on that, when there aren't any PAN training days, would the center be open to the community to come in and learn? Is that something that's encouraged?
Of course, as we build and we develop on the program, I am sure, because listen, the Panyard is, I think, the only space in Trinidad and Tobago that has people moving throughout the entire day, because the senior citizens also come there for recreational purposes. You know, they come, they sit, they line. It is a place where they also meet, and then the young people come in, and then the leaders come in. And listen, any kind of training can take place in a Panyard. It is a safe space for the entire community.
Yeah. I see your passion.
That's right. When you bond, you know, it's community pride. You want to put on your All-Stars jersey. You want to put on your Despas jersey. You feel part of it. It is something that you're big and you're bad for your steel pan, for your pan side, that love. And it unites. And I mean, it's an amazing space. And then to have that kind of program happening where you fuse the culture and the technology together, I mean, what more can we ask for?
Yeah. Can you share any examples of any standout centers or steel bands that may have thrived from this grant over the years?
Well, of course, I don't want to single out any particular band side or steel band, steel orchestra, but I think all the spaces are being put to good use from those that I have visited. All the spaces have been put to good use. You know, when you see, I mean, we don't have enough. I mean, it's about 5 computers, and we have about 25, 30 children, and so we have to do the rotation. But we ensure that every child gets a chance to sit and make use of the facility. I tell you, I mean, this is amazing, and now we are asking for more orchestras to apply, and I am sure by now, Diana, a number of those may be coming in, and then we, of course, will decide on who gets. So yes, Trinidad and Tobago, things are happening in the Panyard. It's much more than the music.
So even on that, what advice would you give to the steel bands, the newer ones applying this year, so that they can get the most out of the program? Diana?
So, well, one of the requirements, of course, as I mentioned before, is that they have a vibrant youth program, after-school program in place, and it's just that will actually give them the upper hand.
Yeah.
If there's something existing at their space, once they can show that there are plans to develop and even make use of the technology in teaching steel pan, because we've had bands in the past who have incorporated technology. They've been able to do online music classes with their band, with their youth, their young people. So these are the types of things we're looking for: vibrant youth programs, bands that are already up and running and have plans to make use of the technology in their existing programs.
I just want to add something here, all righty. What it has also allowed is for a number of our steel orchestras to benefit from the technology. In terms of Pantry and Bagel, where they can now have their own email address, and they can now use the same facility to do their letters and do their printing and all of that. You know, long ago we had to go and deliver letters and all of that, and give it now to the bands and find somebody in the community, the captain or the secretary, to deliver a mail. Now the majority of our steel bands are on board with the technology, and so they have it now in their own space. They have the use of 1 year free internet and all of that, and so those bands of course benefit from the technology because they can now use it to organize themselves so that we can communicate with them online.
Yes. So let's talk application, the application period. How can interested candidates apply for this grant, and
So the applications open on May 5th and it closes on June 5th. It's an online application. It's the simplest application ever. There is no need to upload any documents prior to the application review process. So it's just about filling out your information. They can simply go to our website, the Digicel Foundation TT, and log on under our Technology and Education Center's grant program and just simply fill out the application. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Not to sound cliche, but it's that simple.
Yeah.
So what is the long-term vision for the Technology and Education program, and how does the foundation see it going in the next 5, 10? Where do you guys want this initiative to end up, and what do you want to be remembered for?
I actually want to add to that question. One time, do you see this initiative, expanding to maybe other community-based programs apart from just steel bands?
Yes.
So yes, of course, we would want to see this program expand beyond steel bands. Even maybe there's opportunity to go into cultural spaces, carnival spaces, into primary schools where they're probably not access or even up and running computer labs in those schools, because we want to give our children at a primary school level exposure before they even venture into secondary schools.
Exactly.
So it's really to continue to foster. So our ultimate goal is to foster an inclusive environment where you don't just celebrate, in the pan or artistry, but it's about supporting wherever needs the support, whether it's in a panyard, a cultural space, a primary school, a secondary school. Wherever there is need for development in technology, we are willing to go the distance. So, and that may be in the future, but we will continue to leverage technology for social good.
Miss Moore, as the president of Pantry and Bagel, what's one message that you want to leave with those who may be applying or who may want to apply about that? And then what do you want them to learn about the spirit of this program? What do you want them to take away?
All right, so We will continue to encourage our bands to apply to ensure that they connect with the world. It is all about connecting with the world, allowing our young people and even the orchestras themselves, their leaders, to use the digital tools to connect with people all over the world. It is a training exercise that prepares even those students to do better in school, and we have already seen the impact. It settles them down, and we have already seen the impact in a number of these years. When you think about, have you ever seen the amount of young people that performs on the instrument? The thousands of young people, and now that we are bringing these programs in the Panyard, I mean, it definitely creates that impact that we want as leaders who make an invaluable contribution to society, and then to have partners like Digicel and others come on board to assist us in developing these young people and taking them into the technological world, where they can connect with a number of other steel bands outside of Trinidad and Tobago, where they can make friends outside of Trinidad and Tobago. And I mean, we want to ensure that we hold hands and have this deep partnership with Digicel, and to ensure that our bands continue to thrive and to prosper.
Specify and well, to clarify, the program is for steel bands to apply, and these are steel bands who are registered with Pancho and Bago. Yes. Steel bands,
is it that youth outreach
program, right? So is it that if individuals would like to join, they have to join that specific steel band group, or can they come straight to the Digicel Foundation or into the program? They have to be part of the steel band.
As long as you're a member in the community,
right,
you can benefit through these tech centers. So you do not have to be a member of the band.
Yes, okay.
Oh, okay.
As long as you're a member of a particular community, or even if somebody from Blackrock wants to go to Golden Lane to get into, I am sure they will not turn these young people away.
Yes.
Because that too is a benefit to the band, because now we can attract new members.
Yes, I understand. And for the grant itself, you need to be registered. For the bands, you need to be registered with Pancho and Bago, demonstrate that you have a vibrant youth outreach program, have a dedicated and secure space for the lab, because what Digicel is doing is building on what's already there, and have a sustainability plan that clearly outlines plans to continue outreach with the Digicel's investments.
Yes. I actually wanted to ask on that part with the sustainability plan, what is the criteria for having that sustainability plan? Is it just
to show that they can maintain what's
community involvement?
Yes, what is community involvement or other partnerships? We've had bands who brought on other partners to fund other programs for Tobago Panthers. As you know, they're one of our success stories. So I will draw from that example. They brought on one of their partners, I think it was First Citizens, provided them with funding to carry on the programs that they were existing in their spaces. So since it always takes a village to raise a child, and this village is corporate Trinidad and Tobago. So if once our bands could continue to engage with other corporates or even other community groups to develop what they have, this is success for us. This is sustainability for us.
Okay.
Wow, this is an amazing
initiative. And you know, we look forward even to the partnership with the schools. All right, because the schools, when they send the children, and those children come, even if the intention was just to come to get to use the computers, when they hear the other children practicing, they too want to join this.
Of course, and when they build relationships with other kids, and that friend might be, you know, learning to play the steel band or part of the band, they might go home to mom or dad, or, you know, and suggest, like, this is what I want to do. I want to try it out. So, it's definitely...
Correct. And so when they want to try it out, the mom and the dad, now they become a part.
Yes.
So the children comes, playing the steel pan for the first time because they came to use the computer. But here they're now playing in the band. And mom and dad comes. And they are now a part of the whole process that we have going on in the Panyard.
Of course, it's definitely a ripple effect and a beautiful one at that.
And so the ripple effect, and then it's just it's adding technology onto that. It's a very powerful intersection because you're taking them from point A and carrying them into the future.
Yes.
So this is a really amazing initiative to see.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you so much for coming on to AM Prime this morning and for sharing all of this amazing information for pan bands. To come and register and apply and kind of, again, as we said, take from now to the future. So
and this is our culture, so it's definitely something we need to continue to nurture and get our youth involved. Because I'll admit, I love pan. I love listening to pan music. When I was younger, I always wanted to learn to play pan, but I never got the opportunity to do it, unfortunately. But I wish I could play pan, but it's it's just not something I got to do.
I actually did music, and I had to do a pan assignment, and it was also one of the most fun things that I've ever gotten to do. I did that and piano, and it was amazing. But the pan, it just brought me back to my culture. I felt like a real toonie.
Yeah, it's nice.
So again, thank you both for coming onto the program, Diana and Beverly.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, an
thank you,
absolute joy.
President Moore.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
All right. Have a beautiful day.
You as well. Bye.
Thank you.
So for our viewers, we have we're going to go back to some updates on news stories that we think that you guys should, you all should be a little bit more, we want to educate you guys on. All right. So this is something that we were actually talking about before. It's concerning Caribbean students living in the U.S. On student visas, F1 visas. So in March to April, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security mistakenly terminated hundreds of F1 students' SEVIS records, that's Student and Exchange Visitor Program, via ICE. So this is perhaps risking, putting at risk of students' deportation and continued legal status for our Caribbean nationals that are living or studying in the U.S. right now. So take a look at this video for more information.
In the days to come, you should expect more visas will be revoked as we identify people that we should never have allowed in because they lied to us. When they said they were coming here to be students, they didn't say they were coming here to occupy university buildings and vandalize them and tear them apart and have campuses hostage. If they had told us that, we would never have given them a student visa.
If you're a Caribbean student planning to study in the U.S., your F1 visa might not be as secure as you think. This year alone, nearly 1,700 student visas have been revoked, sometimes without warning or clear reason. From minor offenses to political involvement, Caribbean students are at risk of losing their legal status at any moment. In this video, let's explore how the U.S. government is using political agendas to target international students, why your visa might be revoked without notice, and what steps you can take to protect yourself before it's too late. Let's get started. Imagine a young Jamaican named Adio who dreams of studying at Columbia University. After 4 semesters, one mistake, running a traffic stop, leads to his visa being revoked. 2 months later, ICE shows up, confiscates his belongings, and sends him back home. With over 5,120 Jamaicans facing deportation, this is not an imaginary scenario. Thousands of Caribbean students could really be at risk. So, what's happening? In November 2024, an ICE report identified more than 97,000 Caribbean individuals for its enforcement removal operations. Cuba led the way with 42,000 individuals, and Haiti followed with 32,000. However, for data regarding Caribbean students, we must consult a 2023 DHS report on the Student and Exchange Visitor Information System that states there were 20,429 students from the 15 independent Caribbean states that year. Latest SEVIS data shows a foreign enrollment decline of 11% from March last year to March this year. This means the numbers have most likely fallen as well, and for good reason. As of now, students across the United States have been blindsided by long visa processing times, high refusal rates, and a lack of permanent residency opportunities. The enforcement agencies are unilaterally stripping students of their legal status under flimsy evidence and without prior notice or justification. If these policies persist for the next 4 years, foreign enrollment numbers are bound to dwindle. SEVIS plays a critical role in international student admissions, but it has been repeatedly critiqued for its overbearing complexity and lack of transparency. This means that any bureaucratic error or ambiguity allows authorities the opportunity to impose severe penalties, resulting in loss of legal status and even deportation. Shifting to a broader political context, a presidential executive order from January titled, quote, "Protecting the Meaning and Value of American Citizenship" aims to discontinue citizenship at birth for U.S.-born children of non-citizens and temporary residents. Antigua's ambassador to the U.S. explained that this order, quote, "directly challenges the long-standing interpretation of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution." He also stated that pregnant women entering the U.S., quote, "should expect stricter scrutiny when entering the U.S. until a court decision is made." This attitude has persisted for months and shows no signs of slowing down. At the beginning of March, the U.S. President called the arrest and potential deportation of Mahmoud Khalid, a U.S. green card holder, the, quote, "first of many." In that month alone, the Trump administration deported nearly 130 men using a 1798 wartime law used for deporting non-citizens in times of war. Federal judges have since intervened and blocked the deportations under the Alien Enemies Act. It's important to note that even the Bush administration did not attempt such an unconstitutional and egregious violation of the First Amendment after 9/11. The Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has personally signed hundreds of revocations since January 2025, including for Caribbean nationals. He has done so despite his latest Caribbean tour in March, where he discussed energy security and, most importantly, illegal migration. All these policies are part of the Trump administration's strict anti-immigration stance. If you're enjoying this video, please take a moment, like this video, and subscribe to our channel. Your support keeps us going. Thank you. So, what does this mean for the Caribbean? While some Latin American countries like Honduras, Venezuela, and Nicaragua have stated that they won't accept deportees from the U.S., Sanders believes it is unlikely that CARICOM's, quote, "societal character and principles would not permit them to turn their backs on their own." The returning deportees would place socioeconomic pressure on the countries, and the nations would lose their remittances. So, what should the Caribbean students currently in the U.S. do to minimize their risk of getting deported? If you're in the United States, you'll have to keep your head down. If that's not enough, here are a few practical tips that can help you stay on track. First of all, maintaining full-time enrollment status is crucial. As an F1 student, you're required to keep up with your full-time enrollment, so make sure you don't drop below the required credit hours. Even 1 credit short can cause issues down the road. Next, be very cautious about the weekly work limit. F1 students are allowed to work only 20 hours per week during the school term. Don't test this limit. If you exceed even the smallest margin of 20 hours, it gives authorities a reason to take action, including deportation. And honestly, it's not worth the risk. Also, be mindful of how you use curricular practical training, CPT. If you misuse CPT by working unauthorized hours or in jobs unrelated to your field of study, you could lose your F1 status. It's best to stick to the rules here and avoid any misunderstandings. Another important point to remember is that you need to stay safe from OPT fraud. There's been an alarming increase in OPT fraud cases since 2023, with a 37% rise, and illegitimate employers are targeting international graduates who are desperate for work. Always research your employers thoroughly and make sure your job is legitimate. On top of that, it's wise to avoid political activism when possible. Students involved in political protests have faced increased scrutiny and discrimination, particularly from ICE, which can complicate your status. And trust us when we say, you need to keep all your documentation organized. With the current administration's strong stance on curbing illegal immigration, you'll need to demonstrate binding ties to your home country. Have all your documents ready and organized, be it your bank statements, employment letters, or family records. Keep an eye out for travel bans as well. Some countries, including Cuba and Haiti, are on the draft list for possible restrictions, which could affect your ability to travel freely. And most importantly, always consult experts if you're unsure. Staying updated with changing policies and trends is key. But if you're too busy or can't keep up with the news, reach out to immigration experts to navigate any tricky situations. In the face of growing challenges, it's important to remember that while navigating the complexities of studying in the US, which can feel overwhelming, there are always steps you can take to protect yourself. By staying informed, keeping your documentation organized, and following the rules, you can safeguard your future and continue to pursue your academic dreams. Your dreams are worth fighting for, and with the right knowledge and preparation, you can overcome the obstacles ahead. Stay strong, stay vigilant, and keep pushing forward. The future is still yours to shape. Now, we'd love...
Yeah, so if you are a student on an F1 visa, as the video said, you could be cautious. Be cautious.
Keep your head down.
Keep your head down. Follow the rules that they've given you.
Yeah.
Well, what happened was that there was a mistake made by ICE. They would have terminated or put in jeopardy some people's SEVIS status or their status via the SEVIS platform. So now students are finding, even students who follow all the rules, their status is a little bit in complication right now because there's no record that they are allowed to be on an F1 visa right now. So there's
a lot happening, and it's you know, people's educational dreams are on pause, scholarships are on pause. So it's a very uncertain period. But
what we were talking about before was why they would even be looking into something like this.
It's a very valid point that was made there. The reason for them to even be looking into this is because there are individuals that were not following the rules and not doing the right thing, which is why this is even something that is coming up. You know, and as the saying goes, Peter pays for Paul and Paul pays for all.
So we were just theorizing. I mean, so this this government, this administration is coming down very staunchly on illegal immigration. So if you're up there and you're doing what you know you're not supposed to be doing, which is something that everybody does, but we do it a lot in the Caribbean, and we have to stop it for ourselves.
Simple things like, as in the video it said, you know, for an international student, on this student visa, you're only allowed to work up to 20 hours per week. 20 hours is not a lot, and some individuals might feel, no, I need to work more because I need money. Understandably so, but keep your head down.
Especially right now, this administration is not playing around. They're really not. All of these things that happen with mistake here, mistake there, they're not coming out and rescinding, okay, we made a mistake and we're going to give you back your status. No. They will deport you. No questions, they will deport you.
And we've seen it happen in other stories, not just, but before this whole student thing came up, you know, we saw Trump deported individuals without even, without question, without hesitation. So it's scary. And we know there's a lot of Caribbean students that are right now in the United States studying.
And also when it comes to when you're looking for employment on the off season for school, when you look at who you're being employed by. A lot of students work for their campuses, which is great. But be mindful of when you go outside of that. Not everybody is going to treat you fairly. Right? Yes, we're thinking, okay, 7 to 1, 7 US to 1. So you're making a lot of money, but they would be careful that they're not taking advantage of you and make sure that it is legal.
Exactly, that's the point I was going to make. So make sure that whoever is hiring you to work, even if the price is right, if that company that you're working for, that business you're working for, is doing some underhand work and
underhand employment and then following all employment laws,
and they get caught and the government catches up to them, you will be in the mix of it. And as a international student on this visa, they're going to look into how long you've been working, if you're even able to work, because not all students are allowed to work, you know, and you'll be in some trouble. And now you're halfway through your degree, and you get sent back home.
And they're not going to give you back that money.
No.
They're not going to give you back the money. So you get sent home, and then you have a ban on your visa for 10 years.
And you have a half-finished degree.
And a half-finished degree. You don't want to end up in that situation. So as you rightfully said, keep your head down, do the right thing as best as possible, right? And even when it comes to political activism, I know that we want to stand up for citizen rights, we want to ensure justice, but also keep in mind that you're
a guest on their territory. Yes. So try to be humble a little bit and just follow the rules and do what you have to do so that you went there on whether it's a scholarship, you went there to get a degree, finish your degree, and then figure out what you're doing after. But
even if you have to come back home, recoup, recalibrate, and then find a way, if you want to go back to wherever you studied, you want to go back.
Because I know a lot of people, when they finish their degree, instead of coming back home means I will now have to find a different route to get back over there. And most students want to stay over there.
And that's fine.
And that's fine, but that's the problem. They finish school and they stay.
And you overstay your visa,
and now you are putting yourself in a predicament that if you were to ever come back home, which is why they don't come back home, because if they come back home, it's going to be very hard to get back. And we understand that, but it's better to do the right thing than to put yourself in a position to, you know, never get a visa ever again, because if you get deported.
But also remember, once you get your degree, you have the degree certified in the U.S. So you have a degree that's certifiable in the U.S. So you will be an easier path for you than say someone who didn't get a U.S. degree. Yeah. So come back home, recalibrate, eat a doubles, eat a Jamaican patty, and then
plan properly. Plan it out properly. Yeah.
So we do have to end our show today.
Yes, we kind of creeped up onto the hour, and you all know 8 o'clock is Talking Point with Sean Michael Small.
So be prepared for that. I know he has an amazing show ready for you all. So as we end, thanks so much for sticking with AM Prime with us today. You know, you can always engage with us on our YouTube, Facebook. You have the WhatsApp number up there, 6829376. We are everywhere. You can engage with us on our website, WESN CC.
We love to hear from you. Leave your messages, comments. And we will, you know, once we see it, of course, we do our best.
And even if you don't get it in that time, we will come back and talk with you. Yeah? So, reminder to live your life with purpose. And as usual, we leave you with a quote to propel your day into greatness. This one is by Ralph Waldo Emerson. It reads, "What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us."
It's all about what's inside.
It's all about what's inside. How touching.
All right, guys. So stay safe, stay inspired, stay informed, and we will see you back here again tomorrow morning.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
WESN.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I'm Naomi Macnish. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Brown eyes PNM executive rule. Tanku, Swarat Singh and Morris assigned new cabinet roles. The energy minister reaches out to Guyana, and internationally, Canada in talks with the U.S. to join Trump's Golden Dome defense. Now for the details. Former Foreign Affairs Minister Dr. Amory Brown has ruled out contesting the general election, but says he may run for a position on the PNM's national executive, excluding political leader. All executive posts will be contested on June 22nd, with results announced on June 29th. So far, opposition leader Penelope Beckles is the only candidate for political leader, following Dr. Keith Rowley's resignation on May 1st. Former PNM Vice Chairman Robert LaHuns has not declared interest in a post, but expressed strong support for Beckles, calling her the right leader for this rebuilding phase. He also criticized the previous leadership for disconnecting from key constituencies and failing to maintain infrastructure, saying the party now needs unity and revitalization. Finance Minister Devendranath Tanku has been appointed to act as planning minister in Kennedy Swarat Singh's absence, effective May 14th. Tanku is now also a minister in the Ministry of Planning, while Swarat Singh has taken on a similar role in the Ministry of Finance. Meanwhile, Wilfred Nicholas Morris has officially been appointed Parliamentary Secretary in both the Office of the Prime Minister and the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, effective May 13th. Trinidad and Tobago is seeking to strengthen energy ties with Guyana. Energy Minister Dr. Rudal Munilal confirmed that he has written to Guyana's Natural Resource Minister, Vikram Bharat, proposing collaboration on energy initiatives. This follows comments by Guyana's Vice President, Bharat Jagdeo, who said the country currently lacks sufficient gas production for export. Munilal said he hasn't spoken directly with President Irfan Ali or Jagdeo, but expects a response from Bharat soon. He also mentioned ongoing efforts to engage Suriname and Grenada on energy matters, though outreach to Suriname is on hold due to its upcoming elections. Internationally, Canada is exploring participation in the U.S.-led Golden Dome missile defense system aimed at protecting against next-generation aerial threats. Prime Minister Mark Carney's office confirmed active discussions with Washington following President Trump's $25 billion proposal unveiled earlier this week. While it's still unclear what role Canada would play or how much it would contribute, the talks come amid broader trade and security negotiations between the two nations. Trump recently stirred tensions by suggesting steep tariffs on Canada and claimed it would be better off as a U.S. state, remarks that fueled a patriotic surge and helped Carney's Liberals secure a historic election win. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi Macnish. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
Her voice has mesmerized us for years.
And now, in a rare treat for music fans,
Shakuntala and Friends in concert, featuring Shakuntala Jang Bahadur, singing sensation Deval Chaikwal, brilliant musician Dr. Shivanan Maharaj, master flautist and saxophonist Narendra Maharaj, with music from Shiv Sangeet Orchestra, Shakuntala and Friends in concert.
Shakuntala.
Low energy? Heart concerns? Migraines slowing you down? It's time to take control of your health. Join Wellness Unlocked, the series that brings expert advice and real solutions for a healthier you. In our latest episode, learn how Jameson CoQ10 can help support heart health, boost energy, and even reduce migraines. Get the science, the stories, and the steps to power up your health with CoQ10. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and start your wellness journey today.
WESN.
And development of events by chance in a happy or beneficial way. That is arguably what happened in one instance where what should have been a negative situation based off of the principle of the matter had a silver lining. Maybe it did. There was a report that some robbery victims were turned away from the Tunapuna police station. They were told that they had to go to the St. Joseph police station. This is on Monday night. They were robbed at gunpoint while en route to St. Joseph police station. The very robbers that robbed them, apparently they spotted entering another maxi, and the two robbery victims alerted the police. The suspects were later arrested, recovered a firearm, cash, and stolen items. The serendipity, of course, is the fact that if they weren't turned away from the Tunapuna police station, maybe they wouldn't have spotted them entering another maxi. And then made a report in the moment saying, we see the suspects, look for them there, and the police might not have gotten them as quickly as they did, or at all. However, the principle of the matter cannot be ignored. The allegation that officers in the Tunapuna police station turned them away when the TTPS has been consistent in the last I don't know how many years that they have a one-door policy. You have a crime to report, go to the nearest police station. Now, it's not always that simple. There are sometimes practical considerations. The most basic one being, if one police station is busy, it might not be a bad idea to go to another police station so that you don't have to wait in some long line. The one-door policy to some extent is based on convenience. The flip side is, I don't know if that's always the best idea, because when you're in the police station, depending on what you're there to report, you're safe. Who cares about a wait? Do you want to go back out in the public? Are you going to travel? It might be late at night. What if somebody's after you? I don't know. You're running from a domestic situation. You're running from robbers. You're running from the guys on the block that might want to find you. Who knows? Who cares about waiting? That's part of the reason why you have the one-door policy. So the public is not burdened to then have to go to a specific station. They reached a police station. They're safe. Let them take the statement there. Part of it is the longer it takes also. Who knows what might happen to human memory? Misremember. You might have second thoughts about even making the complaints. All of that you don't want to miss out on. So I guess you could say there's a second silver lining in all this. It's not so much a silver lining. Rather, I believe it's the appropriate response to the issue that I hope can be maintained, sustained, and continued and followed through with, to be quite frank. A police spokesman basically is quoted as saying in the report, if that was done in this case, then it will be investigated and disciplinary action can be taken against the officer or officers. If they turn them away, if they spoke contrary to TTPS policy, they can be taken. It will be investigated, and if it is shown to be true, they can have disciplinary action taken against them. That was a strong enough statement. All too often I've complained with regards to various police statements on certain matters. We encourage, we would like to, why do you need to encourage? There are certain things, if it's an order from the executive, from leadership, from their superiors, it's an order. If it's a policy decision, there's no wiggle room there. You may turn people away. Now the question is, will the police service follow through on it? Because part of the reason is poor leadership. I don't know to what extent poor leadership fully caused this issue and to what extent it's other things. HR procedural, technical issues that makes not every situation straightforward. But poor leadership isn't just bad leaders, it's also sloppy messaging, minor mistakes in communication, like we encourage officers to wear body cameras. Encourage. we hope that officers, we wish that officers, we would like that officers. No, it's their job. That's what they paid for, to do their job. And one of the things with regards to their job is to take reports. And if officers don't want to take reports, they're based at the station, right? If they don't want to take reports, it doesn't matter how boring the job is. I understand that not every member of the public coming to the station is going to be an easy conversation. Some of them could be a pain in the rear end. Fine. Your job is to still treat with those citizens regardless of how much of a pain they are. And if you can't do the job, I don't know why you're there on that particular assignment, but if you can't do the job, why are you a police officer? Obviously, to protect and serve is secondary to your actual agenda of wearing a badge. And that's why things like this have to be taken seriously, regardless of the outcome. Yes, the suspects were detained. The alleged perpetrators of a robbery were detained. But that was a happy accident. We can't deal with national security hoping for happy accidents. And to some extent, individual members of the service need to take individual responsibility themselves and not just look at what the commissioner doing or not doing, what the DCP doing or not doing, what the National Security Council, the minister is doing or not doing. We have to do our part, they have to do their part. Let leadership fail to do their part, and then we could then say, given that all other factors were consistent and contributing to a reasonable degree, we know where the problem lies for sure. So when the police wants to say, oh, this is not fair, don't criticize us for that, well, it doesn't help that some of your compatriots, and all officers know this to be true, it doesn't help that some of your compatriots very publicly make the rest of you look bad. You have a perception deficit, similar to our politicians. If you don't like it, you have two options. You ought to live with it and the consequences of it if you're not willing to do anything about it, or you do something about it. But doing something about it is not telling the public that they can't complain about it. I'm starting to wonder, to some extent, the representation of the rank and file and the leadership, both from the executive at the top, but within the service itself, how much is lacking, or how much of the culture has gone off course that the true leaders are having a hard time bringing it back. And that's why disciplinary action probably needs to be, we probably need to see a lot more of that. Because I wouldn't be surprised if there are a lot of situations on a daily basis that are worthy of disciplinary action. And at this point, if a significant fraction of the police service ends up being suspended or fired, that's probably addition by subtraction. But anyway, one of the things, moving on, one of the things that I hope the police would speak to us about, there was a situation, this is not the first time something like this happened, but apparently on the Port of Spain flyover, a man driving his vehicle was rammed, right? So, of course, he pulls over because you had an accident, what are you going to do? Run away? Especially if you didn't cause it. Now you want your situations to be addressed. You don't want the other party, if you were hit, to have an excuse to just disappear into the ether. So this is at 4:40 p.m. on Tuesday. So this is not even like night. The car behind him ran into him. He pulled over, and two men emerged from the car that hit him. They assaulted the driver. They attacked the passenger of the car that was hit. And then they searched the victim's car, took an envelope containing $35,000 in cash from the driver's seat before speeding off. All I will say is, I won't be surprised if it was not just a straightforward robbery. But regardless, this situation, I understand that depending the investigation, police don't want to speak about it. But they do need to put out advice to the public on what to do in situations similar to this. Do you go straight to the police station? Do you use your cell phone to take photos of the other car's license plate? Should you stop? You should stop, right? And there are a lot of situations where you should stop. But now, the problem is, and this has happened before, it happened to a neighbor of mine. Well, the reason why he stopped was somewhat different. Red light at midnight on the savannah. TTBS needs to give some public advice on situations like this, where normally drivers might look to stop their car, and once you do that and you look to engage anybody in a conversation, you are left in a much more vulnerable state than if you were driving. I'll wait and see what they have to say. One thing that I do think is hopeful, a good sign, there's a report that the current administration is going to continue an initiative that started off in the previous administration, right? Now, of course, to some extent, this is going to be hyped up by members of the previous government. I get that, right? But the point is, and this, for a lot of things, the current administration is saying, we're going to have to look and see and assess. Cool, I am all for that. Because we can't just assume, oh, everything's fine, we don't need to change anything. But change for the sake of change is not helpful. Because then some of it is going to be unnecessary. And because it's unnecessary, that and all will be a cost. Because there's no need to change. If it's unnecessary, the implication is not only do you not need to change, but also you're not really going to improve things by changing, but it's going to cost something to make the change. So this is a rice initiative, agricultural work, continuity on some of these projects matters. So we'll have to wait and see. The problem, of course, is when it seems as though the current administration is making decisions based on pre-existing campaign promises, which implies that they did not thoroughly examine the situation once they got into office, because they're following an agenda that was set before they got into office. And I don't want to necessarily harp on it again, so I won't actually go into specifics this time. Now, switching gears a little bit, Watson Duke, one of the most interesting men in Trinidad and Tobago, folks, is the Duke. What are you going to say? My boy declares undying love by ending affairs. I don't, let me not go any further into that wonderful social media drama. But he was saying, his claim is that the people of Tobago didn't vote for the TPP. They voted for the UNC. He said this is the real reason the PDP lost in the April 28th general election. That's a nice attempt. It is. But I'm fairly certain that's not the case. So we'll have to, I don't know what else you want to say to that. It's the Duke, folks. It's the Duke. Now, the last thing I want to get to before we take the break the Puna Piarco Regional Corporation is hoping for the government will see the importance of local government reform. And it goes on to say, and this is the key point. This is the key point of what the reporter wrote. And that it will also be able to provide the finances necessary to strengthen local government. Well, that technically is what property taxes for. And I understand the sentiment. In the sense that local government has been under-resourced for quite some time. And, of course, local government bodies are hoping they could get their cut of the pie. But let me say what I've been saying for quite some time a different way. The pie has not magically grown because we've changed government. And some of the problems, I'm not going to say it's all, but some of the problems is that the pie is not big enough. So what are we going to do now? I am waiting to see how local government initiatives continues once we get a new budget, right? And also, this also speaks to the fact that the former administration campaigned on local government reform. Now, let me play slight devil's advocate here. When they didn't really make any grounds in the local government election, and it was essentially a tie, and to some extent, as much as the Prime Minister had to try and spin it because the local government minister / PRO of the time did not show up, it wasn't really seen as a PNM victory. And maybe they took that as a sign that local government reform wasn't as popular as they thought. However, I think they didn't think long-term enough, because they still kept this property tax thing, but the local government side of the equation, more or less, they hit a hard brakes on it, and it was never heard of again. And it left a situation now where, arguably, when you look at the totality of what they were going to implement, the hope was that it would improve things, but they didn't really do that. Now the implication is that the money that was collected from property tax was spent on what? Because it was supposed to go to local government bodies. Did it? Maybe it did. Somehow, you will forgive me for suspecting that's not the case. I could be wrong, but I suspect that's not the case, because they didn't set up everything in order to actually fully implement local government. Now that the UNC has committed themselves to remove the property tax, similar to other questions, like with regards to WASA, what is your alternative plan? An alternative plan doesn't mean your alternative plan to achieve the same thing that the previous administration wanted to achieve. An alternative plan means, how are you going to treat with this scenario? Is your alternative plan to just leave it alone? I think for a lot of these things, the public will need an explanation with regards to local government and the financial resources committed to them. With regards to WASA, as much as the PSA wouldn't want to admit it, we need to at least get an explanation as to why the status quo is good enough. And I don't know if we'll get that. But at the end of the day, they might not need to do that much better in order to look better than the previous administration, at least on an issue like this. But if regional corporations and boroughs and cities and the THA get the same level of allocation for the next year's budget as they did last year and the year before that and the year before that, at some point, the people on the ground are going to get tired of this. Governments on a whole get away with it because people don't understand exactly who is responsible for what. Not even ministers apparently understand this. What am I mean by that? Well, I'll get to that hopefully later on in the show. When we come back, we'll go into today's daily review. A lot to catch up with. We'll take a break and we'll be right back after this.
My name is Dr. Joanne Williams-Carroll, and I am the Director of Behavioral and Mental Health at the Community Hospital. At the Community Hospital, we believe in nurturing mind, body, and soul. Through our counseling and chaplaincy program, we will provide you with support and strength you need to help with your mental and emotional well-being.
Give us a call.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Struggling with heart health or frequent migraines? Discover the simple steps to reclaim your energy and vitality.
We're diving into a topic that affects about 422 million people around the world: diabetes.
Tune into Wellness Unlocked, the series that delivers expert advice, practical tips, and inspiring stories to help you take control of your health and well-being. Your health matters. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and take the first step toward better health.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
I'm back here talking about on WSN show, Michael Small, with today's daily review. And this is actually a combination of stories. But the first part of it, this is coming out in this morning's papers. It is a continuation. The continuation, of course, is the whole debate with regards to what's the best way forward. You know, do we still go after the dragon despite the dragon can't dance? Or do we look further up to the north? To Grenada and try to make a connection there? Or do we look to the southeast? There's Guyana and Suriname. Well, the government's Minister of Energy has made a claim that they're looking to go forward with Guyana, Suriname, Grenada, right? And to some extent, if you kind of take the message, and the implication is that it's feasible, or it's feasible enough. But former Minister of Energy, plus other things, Stuart Young, he's, at this point, I can't say that I disagree with him. He is warning that, look, this is not that simple because it will have to go through Venezuelan waters. There's no practical way for it to go around. But then also, if you consider this situation, if you consider looking to get Guyanese and Suriname gas as an alternative to the Dragon field, commercially, it's not necessarily a project of the same equivalent costs and difficulty and technical difficulty. And why do I say that? Well, I have a couple of photos to point out, and we might need to do the inverse if possible to blow it up there. But if you see that picture right there, it outlines the different economic zones. That purple patch in the middle is Venezuelan waters. And if you see where Trinidad and Tobago is, and you see where Guyana is and Suriname is next to that, any pipeline is going to have to go around that purple patch. It's going to have to go way east of Trinidad to reach Trinidad's economic zone, Trinidad waters, and then have to cut back west in order to actually get to TNT. Now, I have another photo of Dragon Field and where it's situated. Now, if you look at that, it's a little bit to northwest of Trinidad. It's almost in line with Tobago. Now, that is a lot closer. That is a lot closer. And it's already part of a pre-existing piece of infrastructure. The Hibiscus field is in red. The Dragon field is in orange. So you just need to go from the red field, wherever the platform is for Hibiscus, to the orange Dragon field, put a pipe. That pipe ain't gonna be that big, and then it goes to Trinidad. So I don't know if we could get back to the first picture there with the 4 economic exclusive zones. Can we blow it up? Can we blow it up bigger? Because it might be hard to see this next point. There's a yellow dot. There's a yellow dot right on the Venezuelan side of the line to the upper left of Trinidad, almost in line with Tobago. Look at the proximity there and note that there's a pre-existing infrastructure right next to that yellow dot that's already constructed to get the gas to TNT. Now look at how long you would have to build a brand new pipeline from Guyana, even if you have the legal rights by whatever means. By whatever means, right? Whether it's an agreement with Venezuela, whether we kind of bully them to concede with the help of the USA. I don't know, right? International relations is a different bag of, a different can of worms. So think about the distance you'll have to go all the way around that purple patch of Venezuelan waters. That's going to cost a lot of money. And to build it is going to take quite some time, a lot longer. Then, of course, there's questions with regards to the amount of gas in some of the fields available with regards to Guyana, with regards to Grenada, with regards to Suriname. And I think in Guyana's case, they're already kind of like saying, well, we don't have enough gas, I believe. I could be misremembering that. So when Stuart Young says, look, it's not that simple. I hate to break it to people. But let's use a parallel analogy. Not a lot of people that I've spoken to think Ayla Edward Christopher was a good commissioner. That doesn't mean that her arrest was right. Not a lot of people Now, in hindsight, given what happened in the election period and the whole leadership transfer of power, etc., not a lot of people look at Stuart Young in a positive light. Doesn't mean that everything he says is wrong. And this is where actually exercising critical thinking consistently and persistently matters. Because usually what happens is people want to have emotional arguments and want to be tribal and say, well, I don't like his head, so everything he said had to be wrong. Or because he said something wrong, and I think it is completely wrong, all of a sudden now, everything that he says after that, I have to assume it's wrong. I cannot assume there's any merit in it whatsoever, because then I might undermine my disagreement with him originally. Somehow in my mind, emotionally, that will make me think maybe I was wrong, and I can't be wrong, so he has to always be wrong. He can't ever be right. But at the end of the day, there's practical considerations that the Dragon deal made a lot of sense commercially. Unfortunately, it didn't make much sense coming down to the end politically. Because politically, Dragon can dance because it had no legs politically. It had no legs whatsoever politically. Or it had a lot of legs in the PNM. But then, unfortunately, Dragon is across the border. And once you go across the border, those legs fall off real fast. Real fast. I think a bald eagle swooped down and tore off all 4 of them legs. So it can't dance. Nobody taught Dragon how to dance like a snake. That means that, to some extent, I do have to wonder if the Minister of Energy, Dr. Munilal, to what extent is he aware of the practicalities of the situation? Is he just trying to put up a brave front? Because part of leadership is sometimes you want to perceive confidence or project confidence, sorry. Because at the end of the day, people don't have, large groups of people don't always have patience on subtlety, nuance, and detail, right? They want oversimplified statements because they don't want to think. And that's why I try to encourage as much people as possible to think for yourselves. Because then the consensus is actually worth it, as opposed to the consensus being a pack of nonsense. To what extent is he just trying to put a brave face on, or to what extent are they stubbornly trying to prove something that might not be as feasible as we would like to think? I don't know. I don't know what the particulars are. I don't know what the possibilities are behind closed doors of those negotiations. I don't know. All I know is, at some point, this conversation is going to be based off of who do you trust. Based on the communications by the minister, he's not giving us enough to go on, in my opinion, to say, yeah, everything is fine here. There's nothing to see here. There's no problems at all. We don't have to worry about it. We don't have enough detail. There's an incomplete. But with regards to the minister, the former Minister of Energy, Stuart Young, not only is there to some degree a similar level of incompleteness with regards to the statements, oversimplifications, however you want to frame it, but then it's also the fact that I don't think there's a lot of people in the country outside of the die-hard PNM supporters, which may number, to be fair, as much as 200,000 or less. I don't know if there's a lot of trust to be had for Mr. Young. I don't know. I myself don't even know to what degree I trust him or not. And we're back in this space that I definitely dislike, if not outright hate, where you look at both sides of the debate and you are left wanting more. Who is going to rise to the occasion? And who's going to sink to the lowest common denominator? Now, sticking with regards to energy, of course, the Orlando Agreement is under review. It's put on hold. Like I mentioned earlier with regards to the agriculture thing, it's not necessarily outright cancelled, although there are people who probably might, based on what they've read in the news on Oando, the international news, might not want Oando to go through. But to some extent, the responsible thing is not just the public sentiment is to cancel it, so we cancel it. To some extent, your due diligence should be undertaken. You can't necessarily fully go with the due diligence of a previous administration. That's probably improper. You have to do it for yourself. Or you could maybe include the previous administration's whatever information they gathered, but you can't just solely base it on that. That, to some extent, would be irresponsible, regardless of whether you think the previous administration did a good or bad job. Like, this is just one of those things that you should probably do automatically, because you are now responsible, not the other guy. That's the thing. Even if they did the best they could, they're not responsible anymore for the most part. You are responsible, so you need to make sure all T's crossed, all I's dotted. But there seems to be a commitment for the refinery to reopen within a year. The question is, how is that going to happen? Because you hit a pause with the Oando deal, that's cool. I understand that. That makes sense. But that basically, to me, means this thing is going to take longer than if the PNM continued. That's essentially what it is, right? Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is what it is. It's going to take longer. To what extent is that going to hurt us or help us? I don't know, because the plans of the PNM was to get it done within a year. So right now, according to one coordinator of a business chamber, so I'm not sure if that's his official title. I don't know if that's basically the equivalent of a president or chairman or whatever of other business chambers, right? There's a collaborative path towards restarting the refinery under the new UNC government. Now, maybe it's with patriotic, maybe they're getting finances from local businesses, maybe a new conglomerate is going to be had in order to try to do it. We have to see. The unions, apparently, they are actively engaging with, this is the Confederation of Regional Business Chambers. Will it get done? I don't know. Then the other thing is, okay, it's going to be a new pitch, a new proposal. That has to be assessed fully as well. Hopefully, shortcuts will not be taken in any of these exercises, because this is one of those things where, and I hope our leaders understand this sentiment fully. It's already been messed up enough. Mistakes cannot be made any further, because then what should have been the mistakes of your predecessor, you will now get lumped into that as someone incapable of doing better in this situation. So be mindful of that. Yes, you're on the honeymoon period, but the honeymoon period will excuse things like the refund from the property tax situation. I don't know if the honeymoon period is then going to allow you to go from that to, if this refinery thing in the long run doesn't work out, what the population will think of you then. Ignore warnings to your own detriment. That's all I'll say about that. All right. Let's move on to the next story. So, public utilities under review. Minister of Public Utilities is saying that the government is sticking to its promise, no hike in electricity rates. The problem with that is, and I said it before, you're sticking to a promise made essentially on an election campaign. I don't mind you making the promise, but maybe to some extent, one, it was how you worded the promise. And two, on principle, the indication is we made an absolute statement before we got into government and saw what was there. Now we get there, we see what's there, but we are bound to the statement we made before that potentially had absolutely, I don't know if it had wiggle room or not with how they made it, but it seems as though based on how they're moving on with it, and I didn't hear anything to that effect, No, they said, we're not going to do it. And now they're saying, we're following up on our promise, we're not going to raise electricity rates thus far. I guess that's where the wiggle room is, right? But I would have much preferred if you could have said, we've looked into the matter, and based on what we've seen, it is feasible for us to not raise electricity rates, so we will prevent that from happening, at least for now. But that's not what we got. We didn't get anything to say that actual, affirmative, or active investigations and conclusions drawn from the information derived from those investigations into how TNTech and our power supply and the costs of our power supply. It didn't seem like that happened. It didn't seem like anybody went through the technical details and to affirm this decision based on the merits of the situation. Because, for better or worse, Marvin Gonzalez, the former Minister of Public Utilities, has warned that TNTech is having an issue paying the NGC for natural gas. And somebody has to bear the cost. Now, maybe the government is fine with the Treasury bearing the cost, but ideally, for sustainability, you don't do things like that. You don't incur losses on government services that don't need losses to be incurred. Police, fire, public health, those things don't make money. There's no revenue there. Yes, you can make money off of tickets. That's very controversial in my opinion, because if you succeed in law enforcement, people will not break the rules and the law, and then there will be no ticket revenue to be had. So the implication of if you're depending on ticket revenue is that you want people to break the law because that's your source, that's one of your revenue streams. So let's not go with that. Let's not go with the cynical argument. I understand that it's very real. But things like public utilities, while there is arguments to be made that government should do what it can to keep those prices as low as possible for the public, the question is not if they should, the question is if they could. Because money spent there has an opportunity cost at the end of the day, at the very least. And the opportunity cost is not just an apples-to-apples comparison. It's not just, oh, we're spending variable working capital here to keep up with recurring expenditure when we could have kept up with some other recurring expenditure. No, in a lot of cases, what it is we're spending money on a recurring expenditure that could have been spent investing in projects that would have long-term gains to improve our overall quality of life, GDP, employment rate, revenue, etc., etc. So, and that's essentially what the report says, that Marvin Gonzalez believes government's focus should be on ensuring that utility agencies are paid for long-term sustainability. And this is on the heels of the whole WASA situation. So now, let's go back to that. The Minister of Public Utilities this is today. Apparently, he claims there's a report that says there's a water bias under the PNM, right? Claiming that Marvin Gonzalez lied to the people of TNT because he said they would have had the same data in the public domain. It's an independent report that was not put into the public space, or this is an independent report that was put out without my knowledge into the public space, all right? So the former minister has a lot more questions to answer, and if it is anyone who should be receiving any blows, it should be Marvin Gonzalez for lying to the people of Trinidad and Tobago on an important issue of water. Water impacts people every single day of their lives. Now, I do wonder to some extent if this is the mistake of correlation equaling causation, like with regards to during COVID, and they were like, why are all these cases happening in certain areas of the country? I don't know. Could there be any other reason besides political conspiracy? Now, I'll just throw down there, I don't necessarily think that it is quite the same situation, right? The minister is saying some parts of this country receive a 24/7 supply continuously and some parts don't receive water for weeks and months. You will see the geographic discrimination occurred under the PNM. This is why certain areas, and he lists some areas along the, that still don't receive water, whereas other parts of the country, there are no challenges. Okay, so first of all, let's go to the minister, the former minister, Marvin Gonzalez. He has counter-accused Minister Padrath of being a liar, right? Saying that he pressured the authority to release false information. And I do believe that Minister Gonzalez is going with the narrative that they brought 2 junior employees that the CEO now had to report to while they sort out what's going on with WASA. The CEO is not in charge. They basically put the power in the hands of 2 junior employees in WASA. Could that be possible? Given their association with the unions, the possibility exists. I have no idea how likely that is or not. But that story, which the minister denied, I don't think he gave us enough evidence that I could go with that denial. I'm sorry to say. Especially since we saw what happened with other pre-existing CEOs and boards and whatever. Now, Minister Gonzalez is saying that he received information from multiple sources that the minister and his small team inside of WASA bully people to put this lying statement out. And then he said, check out all where work was done over the last 4 years. Now, the report has 2 examples, one from earlier this year about improvement project for Woodland and San Francisco areas, and then in 2023, another project in Freeport. Here's the thing that I wonder. I wonder if the current minister, Barry Padrath, actually knows how our water supply works. Because there is one very simple explanation why the water supply is not equal, right? Now, within that explanation, let me say this up front, within that explanation, you could still say that there was unfair treatment because more effort could be made to find a way to equal out water distribution nationally. But the reason why it will almost never look equal nationally, right? Over time, yes, you could put just as much resources nationally. That doesn't guarantee that you can have an equal supply nationally. Because water is not just, well, I put money into an area and it has water. You have to get the water from somewhere. The water has to be available. And what happens is our water supply, and I said it before, it's not one national system hooked up by pipes and, oh my gosh, there's no water in south, we could pump it from north. No, you can't do that. It's not set up that way, as far as I understand. So certain areas that have a 24/7 supply of water, WASA was able to find a 24/7 supply of water. Other areas, WASA has not been able to find it. Now, some of that could be because not enough resources or effort was put into finding water supplies in order to make up the shortfall in the areas that don't have a consistent supply. But some of it could be that they just didn't have sources of water. Let me put it this way. You could spend all the money you want. If you're in a desert and there's no oasis, and you're not by the sea, and there's no rivers, what are you going to do? You can't make water out of sand. That's an extreme example to highlight the point. It's not that everything comes down to that, because like I said, it could be that resources were not allocated enough. But let's just say the amount of money you spent on water in the north, you spend it in the south. That doesn't mean that the amount of water supply is going to be the same. And by the way, it might appear that people in the north have a 24/7 supply of water 7 days a week. I don't. I'll just say that up front. A lot of why certain areas don't complain about water is in part because, yes, they have a more consistent supply, but it ain't a everyday supply. And then, of course, unfortunately, people spend money on things like water tanks for a reason. And then once you can manage your situation, once you get enough water, you're not really going to complain that much. But that's just to highlight that. And then, of course, parts of the north, whether it's west, whether it's central, whether it's the east, they're going to have variances in water supply as well. So, I don't know, it makes me wonder because we're lacking further detail. That's only things when you Marvin Gonzalez at times gets too emotional, I think, because he's seeing this as a personal attack against him. But when he was asked questions last week, Friday, he had a lot of details in his statements, including saying that the current minister didn't have an issue with the WASA report. The UNC didn't have an issue with the WASA report. All of a sudden, the PSA says that they want to join the coalition of interest, and now there's an issue with the WASA report. We have to wait and see how this all turns out. But I fear that the Minister Padrath, he's not giving enough details to go on. So it's hard now to fully say, yeah, we could go with his narrative as opposed to Marvin Gonzalez, because at the end of the day, Minister Gonzalez, at least for the people on Talking Point, with regards to our callers, with regards to the people I talk to, he's seen as one of the better parliamentarians, better cabinet ministers of the last administration. And this whole WASA situation is probably born from the pre-existing agreements with the PSA. So to what extent is it based off of merit? And to what extent, dare I ask, that they're having to find justification for the decisions because they have to meet promises that were made not within the public sphere? And this is why I said, at some point, we as the public needs to be aware of the fact. Public interest, national interest, the interest of the nation on a whole is not always going to be in line with the interests of the PSA and other unions, because their agenda, and it's supposed to be this way. If it's not this way, then they're doing their jobs wrong. Their agenda is supposed to seek the interests of its members. How many of you are members of the PSA? So understand when the PSA speaks, no matter how good the argument sounds, ultimately at the end of the day, their job is not to seek your interests, it's to seek the interests of their members. At some point, there will be a divergence. There was a convergence for the election of interest, and then at some point there will be a divergence. The question is, to what extent will that be managed? What I fear will happen eventually could be down the line, or it could be right now, happening right now. The government is going to try to compromise certain things for its election promises. But they're not going to tell it us like that. Now, transparency and doing things above board and doing things, giving out more details and more reasoning and more justification and more explanation and committing to more factual, detailed statements, all of these things for transparency's sake, that'll go a long way. We have to wait and see how things will play out on that front. All right. We'll just do the third story. We'll end with the third story and before we take the break and open the phone lines. This one is somewhat straightforward. Now, we still have an acting commissioner of police. We have to wait and see how the police service commissioner is going to go through the process to get a new substantive commissioner of police. But the acting commissioner, or the commissioner, Junior Benjamin, he has indicated that FUL applications, they're looking to move it online as there have been a noticeable, this is a report, a noticeable post-election increase in FUL applications. And the police service is looking to embrace technology to deal with the expected continuous rise. I think, however, digitizing it using online platforms will help. First of all, it'll be more convenient in some ways for members of the public. But at the end of the day, the bottleneck is going to be the same bottleneck, really and truly, that existed from before. Somebody is going to have to go through these applications. I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty certain, as much as people hear about all the things that AI does, you don't want AI to deal with this, because AI makes mistakes, and this is giving out guns. So you're going to want a qualified person to go through the applications. And let's just assume the entire police service is qualified, which is impossible. That might be what it will take in order to deal with the potential backlog and a surge of applications. Okay, maybe not the entire service, because that's like 6,000 people. But a handful of people probably ain't going to be enough. Part of the problem, when Gary Griffith became commissioner, he met a backlog. Now, one of the other things going online that we need to understand, because I have experienced this time and time again. Oh, the government ministry or agency or entity has a website. You go on the website. Worse yet, if you have to, but this is not even in a situation where I need to get documentation, right? Just going on any website. I can't find the information I want to find. The website layout is clunky. The website layout is unintuitive. Some of the things might not work. Some of the things might work, but then the information that you're supposed to get when you click on the link and it goes to the next page and it's supposed to have stuff for you to read, whether you're looking to research something or to find out something, that ain't there. Sometimes it don't work at all. Sometimes it worked today, but it ain't gonna work tomorrow. And then worse off now, then you'll have an interface in order to input information, right? That's if it's fully digitized. That's if it's fully digitized, which means you're putting in information in fields, maybe doing drop-down selections or typing it in. That will allow a digital database one time to be made. And then whoever's going through it with the police will be able to access things digitally and manipulate things digitally. As opposed to, they might want you to scan and upload documents, which means that you either have to print out the document, or if it's not available on the website to print, you have to go in person to get it anyway. Then you have to have access to a scanner. Not everybody does. And then once it's scanned, someone has to manually read it. There are programs that can read it and extract the information, but depending on if the document is handwritten or typed, that might not work. So then someone might have to read it. There's a whole host of things of implementation that goes into getting an online application process working. Here's the issue. Potentially, in theory, in 2025, the government should have pre-existing models that it could just take from one situation, just do some slight modification. Okay, so we have the framework because we made this framework that we started using for all our ministries, and now the TPS just take it. All right, and this is how we apply for forms. But I don't really see that always being the case. And even, it seems like everybody kind of has to create it from scratch to various degrees of effectiveness, to various degrees of accuracy. And the long story short of all of what I just said is, trying to go online to get government services done can at times be even more frustrating, because then when you have questions as to what am I supposed to do here or there or with this form or with this situation, you don't have anybody to ask those questions to. So it might actually be worse than going in person. There's a reason why customer service information desks, at least in some institutions, are a thing. But then there's also the fact that there's going to be an increase in FULs if they're able to efficiently meet the need or the demand for FUL licenses. While I don't necessarily think that, at least for now, it's going to be a bad thing, I do think that if we're not careful, we could get some unintended consequences here. What are the potential consequences of arming your population that feels threatened by criminal elements every which way till Sunday? I don't know. An increase in violence, violent confrontations maybe. And then the other thing is, how many civilians are going to lose those gunfights? How many civilians are going to have their guns stolen? $35,000 in an envelope in a car. I wonder if that was just random chance that they decided to bump into a car that had all that cash. I just happened to, rob that vehicle and find that money. And then, of course, the population has to have gun safety with regards to kids in the house and all of that drama. Now, apparently the police service is undergoing this digitization of this application process as part of a larger effort to rebrand itself and become more people-friendly and technology-driven. The IT section is working on that, and I think if it's not up very soon, it's going to be. What version of it? What methodology did they use? At the same time, it's going to help us because we are putting things in there where we are able to screen these applications, but be able to still look at it very quickly. That implies that it's going to be more digital than just scanned copies of paper documents, which you cannot manipulate digitally. That is to say, you can't manipulate the information or copy and paste the information without more specialized software that is not going to be 100% accurate. So that we can make decisive decisions as to those who should or should not have the FULs. One of the things that I always pointed out was Minister Imbert, then Minister Imbert, would speak about certain technical things, particularly digital things, and he was saying what the script said to say, and his tone and his delivery implied that he had very little clue as to what it meant. And part of the problem with digitization is to what degree do the leaders really understand what's going on? And then when they come and speak to the public, I'm the boss, so I know everything, so I know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like, no. If you put in effort to learn, it will be very evident that you have a command of the topic. And I don't know, I could be wrong, but I don't know if Junior Benjamin has enough of a command of the topic to speak on it in the capacity of Commissioner of Police. He doesn't have to be an IT technician. He doesn't have to be a computer technician. But part of the reason why it's important for leadership to have enough of an understanding is that when they are overseeing the situation and they don't understand it, that's a very, very easy path to mess ups. And that's the PG term. And then one of the other questions is we have to build up our ballistic database. Is there, if we're going to get out all these legal firearms, maybe we should have ballistic testing done on all legal firearms as they go out. And then we could properly track if any funny business was used. If they were used for any funny business, rather. I don't know how much of a burden I would put on an already pre-existing understaffed or low capacity situation. Do we have enough actual lab techs to do that? Is it feasible to employ enough lab techs to do that at a reasonable enough rate that it is not an impractical exercise? It's not as straightforward as you think. But then the other thing is, I really hope this is not I really hope it's not one of the core pillars of the National Security Plan, because that's not really much of a plan. That's just expanding the conflict. Think about it. National security is supposed to be agents of the states deal with the threat. Right to bear arms in the states is not necessarily meant to deal with street violence and grand crime. But that's what we'll be doing. How feasible is that? Some places, they think it works. Other places, other countries, they don't think that it works. Now we gotta wait and see how it plays out here. Unintended consequences of arming your population. I guess the trick is, it's if you do it in a responsible or irresponsible manner. What does that mean? The variables are probably too much for me to get into. All right, we have Digger Martin. We'll take the call. Maybe we'll take the break after, but we'll take Digger Martin first. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Sean. And I'm looking at your headline there. FUL application online. And two, the TTPS has the competency of doing that. You remember the promotional glitch, and we haven't found out what went on, and we don't know if it was data entry or just skullduggery. So I put in a big question mark. But I want to talk to to something close to everybody in this country had. I am reading one of the dailies, and I have to pick them up today. The biggest of the dailies, the Express. And there is a piece on the Express today, and this is what it has said. The watery grave of the Trinidad's, the voices from Trinidad's watery grave. And it is a piece and a podcast being done by the UK Daily Mail. And it's available as you open online the Express piece. You could listen to how heartbreaking that podcast is with respect to the GoPro audio. And in the article, apparently they were down here for about 10 days, sometime in February, the Daily Mail, the journalist and a team. And she had interviews with a lot of people who were involved in this. And the two most critical persons for this strategy was two former prime ministers. One had 10 days and the other had 10 years. They couldn't get an interview to do this podcast. And what that tells you, they could say it is before the court and they don't want to basically comment on it. But the journalist has made some points that I believe somebody, with respect to the state, we have to pin this strategy on it. And it has to be the leadership of the country that they allow this to happen. Because the journalist said is by chance she got a hold of the GoPro audio.
Yeah.
And she had to do a piece on it, and she's doing several pieces on it. And it's an opportunity, and I'm begging you all to play that podcast, something. I'm not directing you all. For the people of Trinidad and Tobago, for transparency's sake, and to understand why we continue to play with the closure of the lives of the 4 divers who died. We continue to leave it there, to let it go. Hopefully, with a new government, we could bring closure to it. That's all I have to say, because I listened to it and it hurts me. I hope you have a nice day and you get some time to listen to the podcast. Bye.
I mean, caller, I'll be honest. There's a part of me that doesn't want to go that deep into the Paria tragedy again. Because I wasn't there, but we've seen enough of the footage. And those with enough knowledge and experience could, to some extent, imagine what it would be like. And that's not even anything close to really being there. Let's be frank. I don't know what it's like to breathe in those fumes and to be that confined. But I know that the confinement, the darkness, the uncertainty, all of those things will play with my mind. It will be a mental torture as much as a physical one. And it led to 4 men's deaths. And I don't know if it's better or worse that we know the conclusion to that particular story. Because then now it causes all of the suffering and the tragedy and the fear to be heightened, because you know it ends horribly. So I don't know if I want to re-engage with the actual recordings and all of that. I'm more concerned about the investigations and the aftermath. And I'll say this, I wanted to disagree with your statement that the 2 politicians were the most important people. But then I realized that, no, I think you are right. But my reasons for saying that you're right to say that is that what should have been the most important people were the executive leadership of Paria and the operational leaders of Paria that dealt with the situation, or rather did not deal with the situation. Because the lack of rescue, for the most part seemingly, based on the Commission of Inquiry, comes from Paria, not from LMCS. LMCS and Paria have OSHA issues, which is fine, but the lack of a rescue attempt seemingly came from Paria. And based on what we know, and I could be wrong, but just based on what is publicly available information, it was one of the most cowardly decisions that I've ever seen in public. It takes the whole notion of sweet TNT and it throws it out the window. It takes the whole notion of national unity and all our we is one family and all of that crap, because that's what it does. It turns it into crap. In that moment, it craps on our national identity. It craps on our society. It craps on all the values and all of the unique beauty and the cultural diversity and the togetherness. That's what that decision did. But here's the key. Here's the key. The people that made that decision, what consequence have they had because of that decision? Which is very difficult to justify, if impossible. Potentially impossible. I don't know what the potential justification is. Yes, there are risks when you go to rescue people from dangerous situations. Nobody ever told you that before you were put in charge of a situation like that? Because there's a very, very, very big question on, did they have to die? And the final answer to that question, it might not be an easy answer, there might not have been an easy solution, but the final answer probably is no. But since they are not facing any consequence, I don't know if legal consequences for them are coming down the pipe. But since they haven't, then we have to go to the political leadership that did the Commissioner Inquiry report, and dare I say they might regret it because there's no way for them to spin it. So you want to know what the legacy is, Dr. Rowley? I hate to say this. I actually really do hate to say this, but it's not going to be the airport. And it's not going to be Sandals if Sandals ever comes through, because you're not even part of that decision anymore. And it's not going to be COVID. It should have been COVID, but it's not. It's going to be the SRC, it's going to be the Auditor General, it's going to be Paria. And now I'm actually starting to wonder if Paria really, as the caller said, should be pinned on you and Minister Young and the rest of your cabinet. That's what the PNM has to rebuild from. And they're not doing a good enough job. Faisal has been waiting on the line. I'm sorry, I just had to get that off my chest because that situation, and that's why I don't want to go and listen to any more recordings from that. I can't deal with it. Faisal on the line, sorry, good morning, caller, you on the air. Are you with me?
Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
Good morning, Sean, I heard you said that the oneness, the unity, the peace, everything was destroyed when the Paria thing happened. My brother, I want to let you know that has been destroyed from the beginning of 10 years ago. It was an ongoing process by the PNM government to segregate and mash up the economy, the unity, and everything in this country, which they have successfully done. Paria is just one of the end results of their doing, or failure of doing, whichever way you want it. Sean, I heard you with your analogy this morning and your review with respect to the Dragon Gas deal and the FUL. You know, I think what we should be doing rather than being speculative. I know the UNC would have been in opposition for the last 9.5 years, presumably doing their homework. Yes? And so I would suggest very humbly that we ask some of these people to come on air and we question them and let them tell us where we are with respect. You know, we can't go bantering that Stuart Young is right and this one is wrong. There's a new government in place. I am certain they would have plans of their own. And we cannot delve on what Stuart Young did and he didn't do. It is a new area, it's a new beginning. And the electorate have signaled that this is what they wanted. You see what I'm saying, my brother? So, I mean, being speculative that Stuart Young did this good and he did this, they mash up the entire economy and the country. And the evidence is there. Every year that they would have put a budget in place, it was more or less a little smaller maybe than the previous one, but maybe they borrow a whole set of money and almost double the budget. So it wasn't a want of money. It was a state of gross mismanagement and corruption. This is what would have brought the country to its knees. And these are the things we're supposed to be looking at. You understand, my brother?
I don't fully agree with the last statement on a technical level.
I know you can't agree, but because a vast majority of the people, 325,000 people.
No, but caller, you are no. I need to interrupt you here because you are misrepresenting my position. You are misrepresenting my position.
Explain.
You are doing what I said earlier on in the show. Just because the PNM is wrong, the PNM could be wrong 99% of the time. The PNM could be wrong 99.9% of the time. My goal is not just to say that they're wrong. My goal is to show where they are actually wrong, and if they are not necessarily actually wrong, whether it's neutral, whether for whatever reason, right? Not to just say, well, they're wrong, and the voting people said that they were wrong, so we just have to go with the fact that they're wrong and forever wash our hands of the situation.
Okay, and that is why, and you remember my opening statement, so was to get people on the show. And let's have the reality of the thing, not speculation. But what I have to work with now is that the population have spoken overwhelmingly. That is what I can be guided by. You know, it was not a narrow victory.
Caller,
yeah?
that matters in a general sense. But with regards to specific details of any issue, generally speaking, the consensus of an election, regardless of how overwhelming it is, you can't actually then take that as a determination of what specific details of any issue is.
As a matter of fact, the population, not me, don't put it to me. This is not a personal opinion. This is what the nation has said. It's not me saying that, and the evidence is there.
Yes, but caller, how many voters prioritize Dragon? How many voters prioritize the general economy? How many voters prioritize the SRC recommendations? How many voters prioritize Stuart Young's comments in Parliament?
All right. What we have is 101,000 PNM supporters, presumably, didn't come out to vote. What does that tell you?
I know, but the thing is, there are multiple...
Stop. What does that
It tells me that one of many reasons that the PNM was unpopular could have been the reason that was the final straw for them to not vote for the PNM.
Exactly.
But it doesn't tell me which reason, caller, so I can't fully take that election results and apply it to any specific individual situation.
And that is why I call a multiple of instances. I didn't target one and see. If I would have zeroed in on one, then you could have held me to that. But I told you a number of things that would have caused it. Yes?
Yeah, caller, I think you're missing the point that I'm trying to make.
No,
you could call the multiple instances, but you can't get a final conclusion on any one instance. So you're still speaking in generalizations, and I am speaking on specific issues in a specific way with specific points.
And so I am saying to you, the best way to have this and the population, informed is to get the people who are there and who are directly connected so they can inform us and let us know what is happening. We cannot speculate.
So I've been doing this for 4 years. You want to know a secret? 9.9 times out of 10, they don't show up to talk.
Call them on air, Sean. I've seen programs where they call them on air. Call them on air. Because you might be telling me that you're trying to get them, and I can suggest that you're not trying to get them.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yes, and you just making a blanket statement that they don't want to come. Call them on air. You've called them out 5 times to the week and convince the population they are not willing to speak to you.
All right.
Yes? Good, my brother. Have a nice day.
Have a good day. We have another caller waiting on WhatsApp. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. I still have a lot to say on so many things that you said, but we'll take the call first. Caller, good morning. Caller? Or did we lose the call from Arima? Okay, well, let's take the call. Or I don't know what, seems to be just having a slight delay. I don't want to get into the other point that I want to make. Caller, are you there? All right, I can't just leave the show hanging. So look, I wasn't, caller, are you there? Okay, looks like the caller left. So what I said about Young had nothing to do with what he did or didn't do. What he did to me was a negative. That's how I utilize his past. I was speaking about literally the situation, the practical situation of Dragon, and how that compares to Guyana, Grenada, and Suriname. One is more practical than the others. This is, dare I say, a statement of fact. It uses, for the most part, pre-existing infrastructure, and you just have to make a pipeline a very short distance relative to the other three situations. And by very short, I mean very, very short. Therefore, it's not hard to come to a factual conclusion just based off the amount of work it would take to get that gas connected, because you can't use a boat. The whole point is to connect it to our infrastructure so it goes into Atlantic LNG and not having to the source country to build a whole LNG plant of its own. That's the advantage of using our pre-existing LNG plants. That's what we're offering to some extent. So it's not that Stuart Young is right in something that's based on opinion. I show the diagrams to show, okay, we're going to try again with Arima, and if anything, I'll go back and to what I was saying, and then we have another caller waiting. So do we have the caller from Arima? Caller, good morning. All right, I don't know if I want to wait too long. We have a caller from QREP. Arima, is this Arima? Caller, good day. I don't know what's wrong. I think this might be QREP on the line. Good morning, caller. You on here?
Yeah, morning, Andrew. Yeah.
Morning.
Yeah, good program as usual.
Thank you.
You hear me?
Yes, I'm here. Go ahead.
Right. I want to speak about the persons who had drunk in the pipe there, and the 4 persons who lost their lives.
Yeah.
Right? The investigation, when I watched the inquiry, boy, that was so touching when I hear the things that came out, the information that came out. But that decision not to go into the pipe, that was made with the Coast Guard and the person who just say was responsible now. I forget the name. The company now.
LMCS? Paria?
Oh, yeah, Paria. That decision was made between Paria and the Coast Guard, you know. And you know what hurt me? They didn't even try.
Yeah.
They didn't have to take an option and everything, try something to get these men alive.
Caller, to be fair, I don't think the Coast Guard would have had the expertise, and I'm pretty certain they didn't have the authority. Rarely. The authority was with Paria. The authority was with Paria.
Yeah, the authority was with Paria, but remember they brought the Coast Guard. And as you say, they might not have the expertise. Why? Why they didn't have the expertise? You could answer that?
I mean...
We pump in millions of dollars into the Coast Guard budget every year. And you say now they didn't have the expertise. You could answer why they didn't have the expertise?
Well,
to go down at least assess the situation. My point is they never try, Mr. Moderator, they never try nothing.
No. I agree with that. But what I'm saying is I don't know how reasonable it is to expect the Coast Guard to have expert knowledge in a specific accident like this. Because there are a lot of times in the States where things happen and no one actually has experience with the specific accident, so you kind of have to use your best guess based on general experience, right? Because what I'm saying, this whole thing about going into a pipe and all of that, I don't know how many rescue services around the world would know what to do in a situation like this. So I don't want to hold the Coast Guard to a standard that might be unreasonable.
Okay, but my point is that they have never even tried.
Yes, that is still valid.
What I'm saying, because
yes.
when the guy came back out, one of the divers' father came back out, he wanted to go back in, and he would have known why he wanted to go back in.
Yeah.
You understand? So he would have shared out that experience and that knowledge, and the situation with the Coast Guard. But I say this to say, now I ain't blaming the Coast Guard 100%, because you say they might have not had the expertise. But my experience with the Coast Guard over the years, and I come back with the set of money government pumping. You remember during the they had a set of people coming in here from Venezuela, and it had a time where they say the Coast Guard said they only had 2 vessels out of 11 working, 2 vessels out of 11 working, and they couldn't handle the situation where you're not trying to be with a porous place, right? There were guns and drugs coming in and the human trafficking. We know that over 20 years ago. Because I work on the sea, I spent 7 years on the sea operating. I know the situation. Coast Guard over the years have been a autonomy until they serve the answer to no one, and there's a kind of chill section. They don't go out and do patrols. Even in Tobago, the fishermen, when people missing at sea, it's people in the village that go out and look when they call the Coast Guard, they in Scarborough. Nobody, that's why they're working, the same working. But and that's going on for years, and it is horrible. The Venezuelan coming and taking all the fish, the Bayesian coming and taking all the fish. They're not patrolling territorial water, the exclusive zone in Trinidad and Tobago. But here, I have so much things to say. They're not accountable to nobody over the years. I telling you that the Coast Guard I worked for, they were 7 years. I know I telling you. And we had you see that word you use that word this morning where you say it relates to accountability. Nobody is paying consequence. You see that word consequence for the action? That going on in Trinidad for too long, brother. Right? And I get emotional. And you see that pirate investigation, it touched me where I cry when I hear certain things come out. And you see the government, they didn't show a heart. I found there was callous. They didn't show a heart to say, well, try to deal with the people until the court matter finish. At least give them something to go through their life. You understand, brother? But here I go, and I don't want to talk too much.
Yeah.
But we had to do a program on the territorial water and the security of the border of Trinidad and Tobago, and the money the government spending, we're not getting the value. I think we had to do a thing on that, right? Well, and I want to say, bring back the police marine branch. They closed it down since 1989. Bring it back, and the way they closed it down.
It's supposed to have been brought back. They launched it on the
No, that wasn't a complete marine. That was just a ravine. They call it a ravine patrol thing. They didn't have the vessels. They didn't have the vessels, brother. They had a little dinghy and thing. I worked out there for 7 years. We had big vessels from America. We could have do patrols, go 7 days and spend 7 days outside.
Okay, caller, I'll have to ask it in there because we're trying to get our REMA back.
All right, but I want you to give me a number, take my number and give me a number. I want to call you personally and give some information, right? So take my number and...
I'll see if Master Control can sort it out, but we have to try with Arima.
Okay, thanks. Good program.
All right, thank you, caller. Arima, are you with me? Yes, I can hear you.
Nice, because all the time I was hearing you, but you weren't hearing me.
Right.
Now concerning your opening speech with Oando, right?
Uh-huh.
That come like the report that the Prime Minister tear up earlier. That is null and void.
Probably.
For me.
Probably.
No, for me, I could remember, and there are many others too, in a time gone by when OWTU wanted to strike, and they said that the refinery had over 6,000 workers, they were willing to bring in the army and it would have worked with 500. So the question I was asking myself is, why is it after Rowley and Roger march in 2014 in Port of Spain, and they come and they win the election, why is it now that the unions and the government cannot form some kind of agreement and open back the refinery? But what I really call it to tell you is this. From 2000 to now, right, PNM has been in power for 20 out of the 25 years. And I want to explain to you why it is many of us did not vote. Because I told you from before the last election I wasn't voting.
Yeah.
Now, in 2015 when PNM came into power, the UNC had a claim that they built 100 schools. That was proven to be a lie. But they had 39 schools, which were over 75% ready. And in the last 10 years, these buildings were left to stand up there. How could you tell me you care about the children and you care about the people and you care about crime? The basic thing like education, right? You leave these things hanging, you find money to do all kinds of things. From bringing foreigners here emancipation. You find money to all kind of cultural events. You find money for fireworks. But the UNC government is in a bind.
Yes.
I don't think they may be able to fulfill that 10% offer what they give, what they promise to public servants. Because right now, well, I'm a teacher, and we want to literally hang Martin Lumpkin for accepting this 5%. Because what we said is he could have waited a week longer for the elections to finish and then. But it is what it is. And I'm telling you, this government now have a hard road ahead. I'm going to say they start off on the right footing where you actually seen the ministers and them going out and doing something. You wasn't seeing that in the last 5 years. You wasn't seeing that in the last 10 years, rather. You wasn't seeing that.
Caller, I'll have to cut it there because we do have another caller waiting.
No problem, sir.
Time. I will say this though.
Thank you.
I do think the PNM were more active in the beginning. Coming on the end though, a lot of active speakers became very silent. And then when they lost, they were very active again, and that bothers me, to be honest. Where were you when the ship was sinking? Nowhere to be seen. Now that you're part of the solution, or you wanna be at the center of it all, right? We have Sanfan on the line. Good morning, caller, you on here.
Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
You know, I listened to all the discourse this morning with you. I think one of the things that, and this gentleman just now from Arima has a very good point when he says they can't fulfill all these promises. They have a hard road ahead.
Yeah.
What I think at the beginning, if Mrs. Bassad Bissessa wants to really seriously turn that election frustration, that is why she got in power, into goodwill from the nation, is to come out and tell Trinidad and Tobago the truth. Tell us exactly what happened in the country.
Yeah.
And what you can do and what you cannot do. You know, if they level with the population, they don't understand the level of goodwill they're going to get. You know.
Yeah.
Level with the population.
Yeah. Yeah.
No BS and to segue into that, Minister Munilal, Rudal Munilal, and this issue with trying to. Those of us who know Sean know he's talking BS about this gas pipeline. Let me just give you a little insight. It's like you're trying to get a horse inside a car.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to do. You know, there is no proven oil reserves in Grenada. There is no proven oil reserves in Guyana, although we know they have gas reserves in Guyana. We don't know that they have gas. Suriname have some proven, not a lot. There is no infrastructure down in those areas.
Yeah.
There's nobody who, as far as we know, that have contracts that are actually going to be drilling. There's nothing of the sort. To talk about a pipeline, which comes way after you find the gas, is just plain smart with foolishness. And this is where this thing has to stop. We ain't fools in Trinidad and Tobago. Stop trying to play politics. This is now governance. This is no longer politics. The politics part done.
Yeah.
The politics part finished on the 28th of April. Now is governance. And you have to level with the population. Level with us. And as I said to you, those of us who know is BS. Have a good day, Sean.
Mr. Zamvano, I put visual aids. I try to show how far the distance, and the key thing is Hibiscus is right next to Dragon. And I believe there's a pipeline going from Hibiscus to Trinidad. So you don't even have to go from Trinidad to Hibiscus. You just have to go from Hibiscus to Dragon. They're like right there on the map, on the zoomed in map, they're right there. Not on the zoomed out map that will show Guyana and Grenada and the wider economic maritime zones. And that's why, look, it's not about if he likes to it or not. When he points out that fact, to some extent, It is a fact. Now, here's the key. Here's the key that we need to understand. And this is one of the issues that is part of the equation. If there is enough gas, and when I say relative to the price, then no price is unfeasible, as long as there's enough gas in there to justify it. As long as there's enough gas, and the gas is to some extent, in some ways, easy enough to get out. So there are a lot of, it's not just if there's gas there, it's how much gas is there, it's how easy it is to get the gas, how deep you have to dig, and all of that jazz. All of that adds to it. And then the pipeline to lay it is going to be expensive. It's going to be longer than Dragon. And I already said, Dragon is off the table politically. It's off. It's a better commercial project, but politically it have no legs. I already said that. I made the analogy, the eagle took the legs, swept, undermined Dragon. It's basically dead. It can't dance. But that doesn't take away from the reality of getting anything from Guyana, Suriname. Grenada might be a little bit more feasible because it's not as far and it's not going through Venezuela. But again, it's how much. Because even if getting the gas out is to some extent cheap, if there's not enough gas there, then whatever initial capital investment that you put into the project, if you can't make that back and then make enough profit back, because there's an opportunity cost as well. If your return on investment is 1%, yes, technically, we should just do it for 1%. Right now, no. Right now, an energy company is saying we need to find something that's going to give us more of a return for the same money. You can't always just do things for small money. Not at that level of economic activity and industry. Now, I agree with you. If they just level the population, they will get goodwill. I think part of it is they don't necessarily know as an institution with all of its members how. Right? I think some of them are trying, but then it also, they have one arm tied behind their back because of the unions and their deals with the unions. Right? Now, this is one thing I need people to understand. I've tried to say this before. When I say that the PNM had certain constraints, I have to say that because I believe, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I believe the UNC are going to have to suffer some of those same constraints, and they didn't just appear overnight. So you can't say the UNC is going to have a hard time, but the PNM had an easy time. We can't say that. And I will agree with anyone that says within the constraints of the circumstances that they were in, we can still criticize how they managed the situation. We could still do that, right? And now we have to do something similar with the UNC. We can't criticize the UNC for having external factors giving them problems, and they just can't give us the world. I know they can't give us the world. Unless something was very much missing or misrepresented on a scale that is near impossible because of conspiracy theory at that level, you ain't going to keep that secret for that long because too many people would know the truth. You get too many actual indicators from third parties that the PNM and the country's budget was too limited for the last 10 years. Too many external indicators. And that is going to continue in the UNC. And I have to be fair. I have to be fair. Because these things, some of them are external, some of them are outside the control of any government, and they didn't just disappear overnight or appear after the election. They have been consistent. The PNM has large budgets being financed by loans because they're trying to maintain the same level of expenditure that they met under the partnership because they didn't know how to level with the population and, if necessary, figure out ways to contract expenditure. And to some extent, just maintaining the same level of expenditure was not going to work because inflation says, and we've had inflation over the last 5 years at least. COVID really did not help. Inflation says they spent close to 60, if not $60 billion on the partnership. The PNM spent close to 60, if not $60 billion on their budgets. But the goods and services you got in 2024 is not equal to what that same money could have afforded in 2014. And that was the mistake that the PNM made, was trying to keep up with pre-existing expenditures, without leveling with us, without trying to do anything different. The UNC had to take out loans for this month. Because that's the reality of the situation. You can complain about the government taking out loans to finance the budget all you want. But then when you meet the situation and have to do the same thing, I'm not saying that criticizing the government was wrong and that the UNC is wrong for taking out the loans. I'm just saying that's a sign that it's not that simple and straightforward. Now, I have no problem with our handle being null and void just once we get a proper explanation that justifies it, right? According to what we found, this is the case, we can't trust them, this is the information why. I have no problem with this. I was all on board with the UNC criticizing Jindal for similar reasons. So I have no problem with this. I just want a proper explanation, not assumption based on popular consensus and public opinion. New soldiers running on a refinery. To some extent, you could extrapolate what happened in Venezuela. It didn't really end well there when the military took over certain assets. Now, I don't know if it meant long-term running it and managing it, because that's not exactly just soldiers working it. But that's one of the reasons why I think the government got frustrated and closed down Petrochen, the overbloated nature of it. And I fear WASA is in a similar boat. But hey, I guess the unions tried with the PNM, it didn't work. Now they're trying with the UNC, we got to see if it works this time. This could be the hill that they die on. I had to realize, this is speaking about the Coast Guard situation, to the last two callers' points. I didn't necessarily need anybody. Well, I tried getting Minister Hines, I think at least twice, at the beginning of his tenure. And then his mama gang ways, I realized it's a waste of time. No, I don't think Minister Hines ever took an actual morning show interview. I could be wrong. If he did, it was very rare. So at some point, to the first caller, I understand you want me to say, oh, I tried to reach out to so-and-so, I tried to reach out to so-and-so, and tried to reach out to so-and-so. I ain't gonna lie, there's a point in time where I get fed up with the exercise, and I get fed up with the excuses, and I get fed up with not having my calls taken. And I get fed up with when they take my calls, then they say yes, but then you could never get a confirmation from them, or they never show up, or what have you. It happens too often. It's similar to why I said what I said about the FUL digitization, an online platform. It's because experience. And I ain't talking one time. I ain't talking two times. I'm talking all the time. All the time. Even politicians who I've had on before at times are difficult to get on. Because one of the politicians for the public utility subject matter, I have reached out to. I have reached out to one of them. He has not responded yet. And at some point, I'm sorry, it's not my responsibility to try to convince these people how to do their job. Their job, and I've told at least one of them this, their job is to hit all the press. Because if they have something to say, if they think that they have the truth on their side, why are they hiding from the media? It's not my job to get them to stop hiding from the media. It's not. It really isn't. To quote Stephen A. Smith, if you don't want to come and talk to me, I don't have to take your perspective into account. Sometimes I will if there's enough there, if I think it's reasonable, if it has enough evidence to support it. But I don't have to. I'll take my perspective. If you leave me on my own, like the rest of the population, I will take my perspective. And I will include what I think is valid, and I will discredit what I think is invalid, and I will try to explain all of the missing pieces as best as I can, responsibly, and then we'll move on. And all I will say is, the PNM operated under that general modus operandi for the last 4 to 5 years that Talking Point has been in existence. I can't speak to any time before that. All I know is, at the end of the day, they got voted out. With regards to the Paria situation, they didn't have enough information because they didn't know how to get information. That's a hindsight statement, so it might not be fair, but I don't care because 4 men died. Christopher Boudram got out. I don't know how good of a shape he was for questions, but one would have hoped that at the end of the day, the decision maker would have tried at the very least to ascertain how much information we could get from the one survivor that got out of the situation, because they're the only person that knows what's going on inside there that we could speak to. And they didn't. In fact, we got conflicting accounts of what happened after Mr. Boudram was pulled out of the pipe and sent to shore, and who spoke to him, and who heard what, and what was spoken, and what was said. And based on how everything concluded, I think it's safe to say that whoever made the decision that they made it because ultimately they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know that they didn't know what they were doing, and they dropped the ball horribly because potentially they were nothing more than a political appointee who did not have enough experience to treat with this kind of situation. And in fact, to some extent, based on conversations I had with industry people, dare I say that there are a lot of people in the industry, whether certified or not, that don't understand crisis management and liability. So he made a decision, what I think is cowardly. We can't risk anybody because we don't know what's going on, so let's just not do anything and write 4 men off. We're not even going to make a probing attempt to see how far we could get, to see how far we could go. If we reach an obstacle that is life-threatening, then we could assess that it's life-threatening, not just assume that it's too dangerous. Assumption is the mother of all F-ups. 4 men died. That's why I really don't want to revisit the recordings and all of that testimony and all of that. Just go with the conclusion of the commission inquiry and move on, because I'm going to get too emotional. I'm already too emotional on this. But what kind of a society we live in when 4 men die because a rescue attempt wasn't even attempted, because they didn't even try to look and see if they could before drawing the conclusion that they shouldn't? 4 men died. And in our country, remember when that poor girl, Miss World candidate, or Miss TNT for Miss World, or Miss TNT for Miss News, I can't remember which one, right? And she had something in my country, and then she kind of spoke like if she was speaking about some real third world poor nation where we eating dirt and drinking out of one well in a city of 100,000. You know what? To some extent, this is the actual in my country moment. In my country, 4 men died, and nothing really was done about it. In my country. Publicly, in our face, we saw 4 men die. And that, whether they like it or not, is on the head of the PNM. It is. And now in hindsight, when we could look back and see how it all concluded, all the way down to when one of the widows becomes a counselor for the UNC, when we get these nonsense promises of $1 million, which they don't even know, I assume they don't even know how they're going to pull that off, because look how long it took for them to pull that off. Oh wait, they didn't pull that off. They made a campaign promise that they couldn't even pull off. One would think it shouldn't be that hard. At least figure it out before you make the promise. But now that we've seen the end, dare I say, because I thought the SRC and the Auditor General situation might have been the thing that sunk the PNM in the election. But the worst thing that they did was how they managed the Paria situation. From beginning to end. There was no point where I could say on any substantial, significant level that it was treated with well. I can't. And everything I say about the UNC now, for anyone that wants to say, why are you complaining about them for? We hate the PNM. It's all their fault. It's all their fault. It could happen again if we're complacent. And I'm not going to wait until we reach the point where it happens again to then say once again, how did we get here? Didn't we learn lessons from the last however many times things bad happened? I'm going to head it off from the past. I'm going to be upfront. I'm going to talk about it now. I'm going to nitpick if I have to. I'm not here to be liked by any political party or any political agenda or anyone with a political bias. I'm not. You want to agree with me based on facts and evidence? We could have that discussion. Sometimes I'll come around, sometimes I won't, and I'll be stubborn. But at any day, I have no political allegiance. My allegiance is to the flag. The flag is not a rising sun. The flag is not a balize. The flag is not an anchor. The flag is not a torch. The flag is not a four-letter word. That is not an acronym. The flag is not a lighthouse. And if politicians don't like what I have to say, there's always an open invitation. But at some point, I ain't gonna fight it down. I really not. I'm good. I'm good. They could enjoy their public infamy as much as they want. And technically, in some corners, it already started with the UNC. I'm just holding back because at times I do hold back for both sides because I don't want to make it seem as though I'm doing it for the sake of being egregious. But everything has its reasonable limits. But like I said, my allegiance to the flag, everybody should remember their allegiance is to each other and to the republic before all other political affiliations, no matter how good it might make you feel or how mad you are at the other side. Have a good day. Stay safe, which is something that we still very much need to worry about, regardless of the change in government. Thanks to all of the callers, even the callers that I disagree with, because conversation is important, and conversation with people that only agree with you ends up, in the long run, being a very bad thing. But with that said, it's nice to be nice. Even when it seems like I'm not being nice to politicians, we still have to try. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Her voice has mesmerized us for years.
And now, in a rare treat for music fans,
Shakuntala and Friends in concert, featuring Shakuntala Jang Bahadur. Singing sensation Deval Chaikwal, brilliant musician Dr. Shivanan Maharaj, master flautist and saxophonist Narendra Maharaj, with